Chapter 487. The auction begins. The auction was split into 3 days, with different items being auctioned each day. Of course, it didn't mean that one invitation could participate in all 3 auctions. Only those big families and a very small number of celebrities had the golden invitation to participate in all 3 auctions. The ordinary red invitation indicated the number of auctions one could participate in, and it was only valid on the day of the auction. Red invitations were for the common rich and famous people. They could participate in the auction as well, but they weren't as valuable as the golden ones. Fatty Lie's invitation was a red one, but he'd gotten all 3 days' worth of invitations. Shuamin, on the other hand, was a golden one. It was enough to show that Shuamin had the right to sit on the same level as the big houses. The items auctioned got more and more valuable as the days went by. The items on the first day were rare items, but the base price ranged from a few $100,000 to $2 million, never exceeding $2 million. The second day was $2 million to $5 million, and the third day was for items that were worth more than $5 million. Normal rich people could only participate in the first day of the auction, and the second and third days were just for the show. Many people didn't bother getting invitations for the second and third days, and even if they did, they'd just give them to their friends who liked to watch the show. There were different types of invitations, but the auction didn't have a fixed seating area. People were usually seated randomly, and close family friends would sit closer to each other. There were a lot of seats in the auction house, and not even a third of the seats could be filled. There was no need to worry about not being able to find a seat. Lin, Shuamin, and Fatty Lie found a place with fewer people and sat down. It didn't take long for more and more people to arrive at the auction house. All the houses had sent their representatives, but normally the heads of the houses wouldn't show up. The lights dimmed, and a few spotlights lit up the auction stage. A man in his 30s walked out from behind the curtain, and the auction house quieted down. "Welcome, guests, to the annual auction hosted by House U." The man bowed politely, and the crowd burst into thunderous applause. "House U." Lin paused for a moment, and a trace of excitement flashed across his calm face before returning to normal. "Boss, this House U is the biggest and most mysterious noble house. They rose up in the last 10 years, but they've become the leader of all the noble houses." Fatty Lie whispered to Lin, "It's best not to piss off House U, but with your status, even House U would try to curry favor with you, right?" "Huh? Is that so?" Lin smiled faintly. "Who's that?" "His name is Yu Haitian. He's not a core member of House U. He's just a side relative. But he's already someone that outsiders want to curry favor with. He's able to manage the auction on his own," Fatty Lie said. Lin took a deep breath and nodded silently, smiling. "I don't think we'll have any more interactions." "Yeah, House U is very mysterious. I don't know what they do, but they're involved in a lot of businesses. It's just that the people they send aren't the core members of House U." Fatty Lie shook his head with a smile. "Let's continue watching the auction. Our pill of life extension and toxin cleansing is being auctioned today. These people are blind. They can't recognize the good stuff." Fatty Lie wasn't happy when he thought about the starting price of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Why was such a good thing only worth $1 million? Wasn't this a scam? It's nothing." Lin shook his head. "It's already beyond my expectations that it's priced at $1 million. No one knows about it, after all. We'll have to try it to know its effects." "That's true." Fatty Lie didn't feel conflicted anymore after hearing Lin Yi's words. "Right, boss, if there's anything you like, just tell me. I'll get it for you." "Okay." Lin didn't hold back. There was always a chance that he'd find something he liked in this auction. There was at least one item that Lin was determined to get. Lin had already seen the catalog for today's auction. The third item was a torn sheepskin scroll, a tattered map. Of course, to a normal person, this was probably just an old map. Even if it was an antique, it wouldn't be worth much. It was just a novelty. Most importantly, this was only a small part of the map. It wasn't a complete map, so it was basically a piece of trash. Whether it was a collector's item or actual value, it wasn't worth much. If Lin E didn't have that piece of the map from the shark's stomach, Lin E wouldn't even pay attention to trash like this. But from the thumbnail of the catalog, this map was exactly the same as the one he'd gotten from the shark's stomach in terms of material and craftsmanship. Naturally, Lin Yi's interest was piqued. Will there be a lot of people fighting for this? Lin Yi didn't know much about auctions. He didn't know what would be popular, so he pointed at the map and asked Fatty Lai. Puffed. Fatty Lai looked at the item Lin Yi was pointing at, and his eyes widened. No way, boss, you're interested in this? What? Is there a problem? Lin Yi frowned. He didn't know what Fatty Lai's expression meant. Fatty Lai realized that his expression was a little exaggerated, so he explained awkwardly. Boss, in this auction, the earlier the item is, the less valuable it is, and the less people will buy it. Of course, there's always the possibility of a dark horse appearing, but to be honest, I really don't see any use for this thing. Ha, then help me bid for it. Lin Yi let out a breath of relief. It wouldn't be easy if there were a lot of people fighting for it. On the catalog, the base price of the map was 100,000. It seemed like Fatty Lai was right. It wasn't something that was popular. The first auction item was a complete piece of jade that had not been carved. This kind of thing, if it was brought to an ordinary auction, would be a treasure of the finale. However, there were very few people bidding for it here. Obviously, those real aristocratic families and rich people did not care about this at all. The base price was 1 million, and in the end, it was won by a man with a red invitation card for 2 million. It didn't attract much attention. Chapter 488. The second map fragment appears. This kind of thing would have caused quite a stir in a normal auction, but the noble house heirs obviously weren't interested in it here. In the end, it was won by a normal merchant with a red invitation card. And the price wasn't more than 150,000 renminbi. The third item was the map fragment that Lin Yi had his eyes on. The starting price was 100,000 renminbi, and when the auctioneer showed it, there was a brief silence in the hall, because the description on the map was very brief, and the lines on the map were not clear. No one knew what this thing was used for. Even if it was an antique, there was no corresponding appraisal report, and it was not even clear when it was made. If it wasn't an antique, there was no explanation of what it was used for. It was similar to the hand-drawn maps used by bandits in the old days, and it was just a fragment. This kind of thing didn't have any real value at all. It was fine to sell it in the antique market to people who didn't know anything about it, but in an auction, it seemed a little out of place. However, there were always some strange things that appeared in auctions, and while many of them were left unsold, there were always a few of them every year. In fact, the auctioneer didn't know what this map fragment was, so there was no introduction. Therefore, there was no introduction at all. According to the introduction on the booklet, this was a strange sheepskin map. It might be a treasure map of a huge treasure. Of course, he also said that it was just a possibility. There were many possibilities, like picking up 1 million RMB on the streets. No one would believe something as ridiculous as that. The noble house heirs and rich merchants who came to the auction weren't idiots. They were here for things that were useful to them, and naturally, they wouldn't participate in anything they didn't want. An auction wasn't a market, after all. Things they didn't want had to be bought in the end, and they couldn't go back on their word. As a result, no one made a bid for a useless map fragment like this. It wasn't like the auctioneer hadn't encountered a situation like this before. There were plenty of items that were left unsold, and this one wouldn't make much of a difference. He cleared his throat. Auction item number 3, a sheepskin map. Anyone up for bidding? 110,000. Fatty Lai raised the sign in his hand. This thing might really be a treasure. I'll buy it and study it. Fatty Lai's words attracted a lot of confused and disdainful gazes from the crowd. Finding the treasure with a tattered map like this, that was ridiculous. Fatty Lie looked like a rich nouveau riche, and those who knew him were confused. Fatty Lie was a smart guy, so why would he buy such a tattered map? Could it be that he wanted to show off? Those who didn't know him all thought that Fatty Lie was an idiot with nowhere to spend his money. 110,000. Mr. No. 183 offers 110,000. Is there anyone with a higher price? The auctioneer was slightly taken aback. However, it was naturally good that there were people participating. Although it was only 110,000, 20% of the profits would go to the auction house. Even if a mosquito was small, it was still meat. 110,000 going once, 110,000 going twice. The auctioneer looked at the people present, hoping that someone would raise the price, but unfortunately, no one did. These rich kids weren't idiots. They wouldn't bid for something useless, and they might even become enemies with the other bidders. Those who could participate in this auction were people who put profit first. No one was willing to do something that would harm others without benefiting themselves. If they were useless, then they might as well not participate and leave it to someone who was useful. But if they were useful, then they'd definitely fight until their necks were red. Messing around like this was rare, unless the two people had a grudge against each other. In a corner of the auction house, a man's face tensed up when he heard that someone was bidding. He said into the earpiece, "Second uncle, do you need me to raise the price?" The other party seems to be very cautious. "I don't know if he wants it or not." A middle-aged man's voice came from the earpiece. "Let's see if we can add 10 or 20,000 symbolically." "Okay." The man replied. When the auctioneer said 110,000 going thrice, he raised the sign in his hand and said, 120,000. "Oh, looks like it's something good. I'll have to raise the price then." Fatty Lie looked at the man with a surprised expression. He didn't wait for the auctioneer to speak and stood up. 125,000. Huh? Everyone at the scene froze. They were wondering if the scroll was something good when they saw someone bidding for it, but after hearing Fatty Lie's words, they understood. Fatty Lie's way of bidding was enough to tell that he wasn't determined to get it. Otherwise, why would he bid like this? It was like he was being shameless. Although the minimum price for an item with a starting price of 100,000 was 5,000, it was rare for people to do that. They usually increased the price by 10,000 or 10,000. Fatty Lie's increase could only mean that he didn't care about this item. If someone tried to compete with him, he'd just raise the price symbolically. If the other party raised the price too high, he'd just give up. So the crowd wasn't interested in participating. Participating now was equivalent to starting a feud. It was all up to these two. "Second uncle, what does he mean by this?" The man asked hesitantly. "I don't know." "Add another 5,000, and we'll see. If he raises the price again, just give up," the middle-aged man said. 130,000. The man raised the sign in his hand. 135,000. Fatty Lie shook his butt and raised the sign. "Give up," the middle-aged man said. "Get someone to investigate his background." "Okay," the man said, and didn't raise the sign again. 135,000 going once, 135,000 going twice, sold. The auctioneer slammed the hammer down. The people who wanted to watch the show were disappointed. The person bidding against Fatty Lie was obviously just playing around. He didn't have any intention of getting it, and Fatty Lie probably had the same intention. As a result, no one thought that the map fragment would be anything good. Fatty Lie didn't look happy at all after the deal was done, and they were even more certain that he was only bidding for it for fun. He wasn't going to get it for real. Congratulations to Mr. Number 183 for winning this sheepskin scroll at the price of 135,000. Later, a staff member will contact you to discuss the delivery. After the auctioneer finished speaking, he began to introduce the next auction item. Chapter 489. Directly adding 100 million. The pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was arranged to be the 10th item to be auctioned. The auctioneer was the same as the sheepskin scroll before, not having much information about it. He didn't know what this item was, and nothing like it had ever appeared in an auction before. The auctioneer had no choice but to follow the instructions on the booklet, but he added a line during the introduction, something that Fatty Lie had specifically requested. As long as the seller's request wasn't too troublesome, the auctioneer would usually fulfill it. The next item is 3 pill of life extension and toxin cleansing provided by Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. The starting price for each is 1 million, and the 3 will be auctioned off in 3 separate rounds. The auctioneer paused at this point because the auction house was in an uproar. Very few of them had heard of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, and this was the first time they'd heard of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. Just what kind of company was this? Just what kind of pill was the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing? Everyone present was familiar with health supplements and cherished their lives. So, if there was really such a good thing as prolonging one's life, it was impossible for them not to know about it. However, they really didn't know about this thing that appeared in the auction. Besides, wasn't 1 million a little too high? And it was only for 1? Would anyone buy it? Everyone here didn't lack money, but no one was willing to waste their money, especially something that came out of nowhere like this. Who would even try it? The awkward silence that followed the uproar was within the auctioneer's expectations. Something like this happened at the auction every year, so the auctioneer wasn't surprised. He continued, "This pill of life extension and toxin cleansing can expel impurities from the body. As we all know, when humans eat grains, some toxins will accumulate in their bodies. Although some of it has been expelled, some of it remains in the body. The longer it is, the more toxins accumulate. The pill of life extension and toxin cleansing can cleanse the marrow and bones, expelling the toxins from the body and achieving the goal of extending one's lifespan." The auctioneer didn't quite believe the description of the pill himself. It sounded like the strength pills of the martial arts world, and if this pill really had such an effect, then 1 million wouldn't be expensive at all. But was there such a thing? The first pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. The starting price is 1 million. Please bid. The auctioneer had already made preparations for the item to be left unsold. As long as no one bid for the first item, no one would bid for the second or third item. The auction would then be dismissed, and the next item would be auctioned off. Because the auction of an antique vase took up some time, and the bidding was fierce, it was impossible for the auction to end within the estimated time. The auctioneer wanted to save as much time as possible. Others might not understand the effects of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, but there were people here who did. Lu Tianyi understood, and so did Dr. Kong. However, Dr. Kong didn't dare confirm whether this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was the same as the one Kong Xiaobo had given him, or was it a scam? Heh, they even made a Miracle Dr. Guan. Isn't that obviously imitating you, Elder Kong? Xiao Ji, who was sitting not too far from Dr. Kong, said mockingly, "I think this is a scam." He and Xiao Ben had just received the invitation today, but their father's invitation had always been golden this year. This year's invitation was red, and although they'd received 3 days' worth of invitations, it was clear that the Xiao family wasn't as important as it used to be. There was nothing they could do about it. Xiao Ji and Xiao Ben were furious, but getting an invitation was already good enough. What more could they ask for? The more it was like this, the more Xiao Ji and Xiao Ben felt that they had to ally with House Kong in order to protect their position as a noble house. Dr. Kong frowned, as if he'd thought of something, but he wasn't sure. Miracle Dr. Guan. This Miracle Dr. Guan. Could it be Guan Shuimin? He recalled that the person beside Kong Xiaobo seemed to have a good relationship with Guan Shuimin. Could it be that the true owner of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was Guan Shuimin? Just as Dr. Kong was hesitating, someone stood up and called out a price. 100 million. Fatty Lie raised the card in his hand. Eh. The crowd was in an uproar, including the auctioneer. They all stared at Fatty Lie, dumbfounded. He'd been the auctioneer for Houseu for 10 years, but he'd never come across a situation like this. How could someone raise the price like this? An item with a starting price of 1 million was raised to 100 million in the first auction? How was that possible? Mr. 183, please repeat your bid. I didn't hear you clearly. It was embarrassing for the auctioneer to not hear the bidder clearly, but he didn't care anymore. The situation was too absurd, and he couldn't believe that Fatty Lie would bid 100 million. He must have heard wrong. The auctioneer was confused, but Yu Haitian, who'd been sitting below the stage, frowned slightly. Houseu was the host, but they were also part of the auction. Yu Haitian was sitting with a middle-aged man. If one looked closely, they'd see that the middle-aged man was wearing an earpiece. The auctioneer didn't know, but Yu Haitian knew very well that the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was provided by Fatty Lie. Was he buying the pill himself, or was he trying to raise the price? In the auction, there were indeed some people who wanted to raise the price of their items and participate in false bidding. The host of the auction knew this very well. And so, in order to prevent this from happening, the host of the auction would take a commission, and Houseu's commission was as high as 20%. This way, even if someone wanted to raise the price, they'd have to take a huge risk. If they succeeded, then everyone would be happy. The host of the auction would take a lot of commission, and the seller would get the price they wanted. But if they failed, the seller would have to spend money to buy their item. In other words, the host of the auction would take a 20% commission. Of course, they could choose not to buy the item after the deal, but they'd have to pay the host of the auction a 20% commission. So, no matter what, this 20% commission was a loss, and normal people wouldn't raise the price so easily. Chapter 490. An astronomical bid. Lu Tianyi gritted his teeth in anger. Fatty Lie was twisting his butt as he raised his paddle, and Lu Tianyi was furious. Other people didn't know what the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was, but Lu Tianyi did. How could something Lin may be anything bad? Just look at Fatty Lie's father, and you'd know if this thing was good or not. He didn't expect Fatty Lie to raise the price to 100 million right off the bat. Did he know how to buy things? Even if he had the money, he wouldn't spend it like that, would he? House Lu might be rich, but they couldn't just throw away 100 million like that. But as angry as he was, he knew the true value of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Even 100 million was an understatement. And so, Lu Tianyi raised his paddle without hesitation. 110 million. Wah! The crowd was in an uproar. It was one thing for Fatty Lie to go crazy earlier, but Lu Tianyi was the first-in-line heir to the House Lu. How could he possibly follow Fatty Lie's lead? He'd even raised the price to 110 million. Could this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing really be something good? The auctioneer sucked in a breath of cold air. Holy **T. This kind of bidding was a once-in-a-thousand-year wait. Yu Haitian's brows furrowed even tighter. If Fatty Lie was driving up the price, then why was Lu Tianyi joining in the fun? As far as Yu Haitian was concerned, this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing might actually be something good. Had he misjudged it when he evaluated it? 150 million. Fatty Lie raised his paddle again. Lu Tianyi's lungs were about to explode. What was the meaning of this? Fatty Lie, were you trying to fight with me? Don't think that I don't have money just because you're rich. Lu Tianyi raised his paddle again, calling out a price that caused the crowd to go wild. 200 million. Originally, everyone held a wait-and-see attitude. They wanted to see if others would make a move before deciding whether they would make a move or not. Many of the people present knew Lu Tianyi, and if Lu Tianyi had his eyes on something, how could it not be something good? But now, they really couldn't make a move. Firstly, the price had been raised to 200 million, which was really too high. Secondly, they really didn't want to become enemies with Lu Tianyi. From Lu Tianyi's way of bidding, It could be seen that he was determined to get this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have increased the price like this. Therefore, even if there were some people who were tempted, it would not be good to bid now. Fortunately, there were a total of 3, and there were still 2 left. They all began to rub their fists, because the way Lu Qianni was chasing after the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing reminded them of something. It wasn't a secret that Lu Qianni's father had gone to see Guan Shuimin a while ago. So many people present knew about it. Connecting the dots to the miracle Dr. Guan medical company that the auctioneer mentioned, they immediately thought of Guan Shuimin. Could it be that Lu Qianni's father's condition had improved because of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing? Those who knew Fatty Lai at the same time had an even greater realization. Fatty Lai's father had contracted uremia and was about to meet the king of hell when he suddenly got discharged from the hospital. Not only was his face glowing, but he was also eating well. He was even healthier than an old man his age. Even if his uremia wasn't completely cured, he was almost fully recovered. This miraculous situation made everyone present understand. Fatty Lai and Lu Qianni weren't idiots. They both knew how good this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was. Why else would they dare to increase the price so much? 250 million. Fatty Lai's eyes were red. This was a rare treasure. And even Lin Yi said it was rare. It had to be very precious. Fatty Lai was too embarrassed to ask Lin Yi for it, so he could only bid for it himself. 280 million. Lu Qianni gritted his teeth and called out the highest price he could. The crowd was in an uproar again. If Lu Qianni didn't know about the effects of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, he wouldn't have called out this price. There was only one answer. The auctioneer's introduction was true. This pill really had the effects of prolonging life and detoxifying. Fatty Lai was about to call out another price when Lin Yi pulled him back, shaking his head. Stop, it's a little expensive. Ugh. All right. Fatty Lai didn't want to give up, but he didn't dare disobey Lin Yi. Lin Yi was his boss. Losing the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was painful, but offending Lin Yi would be worse than death. Your dad drank the medicine I made for you. He doesn't need this anymore, Lin Yi said faintly to Fatty Lai. You don't have to fight for it. Thank you so much, boss. Fatty Lai was overjoyed. He'd wanted to prepare an emergency pill for his father, but Lin Yi said he could cure it. Fatty Lai, on the other hand, wanted one for himself. After all, this was an immortal pill. Thus, he said, Boss, I also want one for myself. Oh, I'll give you one when we get back, Lin Yi said nonchalantly. Fatty Lai burst into tears at Lin Yi's words. People who didn't know better would think that he was crying because he didn't have the money to bid for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. 280 million going once, 280 million going twice, 280 million going thrice. Sold. The auctioneer was extremely excited. This price could be said to be the most expensive item in the entire auction. Even the items on the third day of the auction might not be sold at such a price. This pill of life extension and toxin cleansing had the right to be auctioned in the third round, but since it was already in the first round, there was no changing it. They could only continue. Lu Qianni was overjoyed when he saw Fatty Lai stop bidding and start sobbing. This Fatty Lai must be out of money. He heard that House Lai's boss was trying to split from him, and it seemed like House Lai's money had all been taken by Lai Changtian. Next, the second pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, with a starting price of 100 million, the auctioneer said slowly. Every increment must be at least 10 million. The auctioneer could increase the price according to the market and the response. With the previous example, the auctioneer wouldn't start with a starting price of 1 million again. That would be a joke. Although this price shocked the guests present, they also knew that this thing was indeed worth the price, so they didn't have any objections. Dad, what's that? How can it be sold for such a high price? Xiao Xiao looked at her father, confused. Chapter 491. How Xu makes a move. Qianlong, on the other hand, had a frown on his face. His heart was in turmoil, unable to calm down. Was there such a miraculous pill in this world? Would it work on his daughter's illness? If it really was, as the auctioneer said, that it could cleanse a person's bones and marrow, could it be used on his daughter as well? Xiao Xiao's illness was caused by a defect in her blood. Miracle Dr. Lin had said it before, and with the development of science and technology, some genetic experts had said it as well. They'd all tried other methods to make up for Xiao Xiao's blood defect, but there hadn't been any progress. If this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was effective, Tianlong would have gotten one. For Xiao Xiao, no matter what, but the price was too high for him to even think about it. He belonged to the most secretive department, and his annual salary was frighteningly high in the eyes of normal people, but he'd probably have to live his entire life without eating or drinking to buy a pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Dad, what's wrong? Xiao Xiao asked curiously, seeing the conflicted look on her father's face. Xiao Xiao, I'm thinking, does this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing work on you? Tianlong said, after some hesitation. But I can't afford it. Xiao Xiao started laughing. This thing sounds like a strength pill. How could it be real? Dad, don't believe it. It's a scam. But the two people in the auction aren't idiots, Tianlong said, shaking his head. Feng. Tianlong shook his head. One of them is Lai Changyi, the youngest son of the chairman of the biggest electronics industry in the north. He's rich, but he's not a prodigal. He's good at business. But why does he look like a crybaby? He can't get the pill, so he's just standing there crying? Xiao Xiao clicked her tongue. This fatty wasn't simple, but why was he crying? That's just how he is, but he doesn't cry all the time. He only cries for certain things. Tianlong said, the other person's even more powerful. He's the first heir to Yanjing's house, Lu Qianni. He can't be an idiot. What's wrong with that? Rich people will buy weird stuff if they see it. Xiao Xiao didn't believe that the pill was that powerful. Let's wait and see. Tianlong had already made up his mind to pay a visit to Lu Qianni. If this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was really effective, he had to get one for his daughter, no matter what. The bidding for the second pill of life extension and toxin cleansing had already begun. Because the base price had been raised to 100 million, most of the people who wanted to participate in the bidding decided to wait and see. 150 million. Fatty Lai jumped up again, raising the card in his hand. The crowd wasn't surprised at all. Fatty Lai had already bid 250 million, so it was reasonable for him to bid 150 million now. It seemed like he was determined to get it. A lot of people saw Fatty Lai and Lu Qianni fighting over the pill, and they were certain that the pill was something good and effective. But they didn't have the guts to throw out a few 100 million yuan for it. What if the effect was not obvious? What if it could only extend one's lifespan for a short period of time? That wouldn't be worth it. With 200 million yuan, they could do a lot more things. There was no need to buy this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. 200 million. Tianni didn't expect Tianni to raise his paddle again and bid. Fatty Lai was starting to panic. Lu Qianni, are you trying to go against me on purpose? What's the meaning of this? Isn't one enough for you? You want to fight with me? Aren't you a little too much? It's a fair competition, and the highest bidder wins. It's only right and proper. Lu Qianni glanced at Fatty Lai. He knew that he was going a little overboard, but he couldn't back down now. If he could get it for 200 million, then so be it. If it was more than that, Lu Qianni would give up. After all, money didn't grow on trees. Lu Qianni was already very satisfied with just one pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. 250 million. Fatty Lai raised his card again, but this time he smiled at Lin Yi, who was sitting on the chair. Lin Yi, immediately understood that Fatty Lie had jumped out to mess things up. His goal was to get the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing at a higher price. He didn't stop him and let him bid. Raise the sign and buy it. The middle-aged man beside Yuhatian suddenly spoke and ordered Yuhatian. Yuhatian was slightly taken aback. He then nodded and said, "Yes, second uncle, 280 million. Haitian raised the bidding card in his hand. House Yu was the organizer of the auction, but they had the right to participate in the bidding as well. It was just that there were too few items that caught House Yu's eye. Everyone present was surprised at Haitian's sudden participation. House Yu had never raised a card in the past few years because everyone knew that once House Yu raised their card, no one would dare compete with them. It wasn't just because they were afraid of House Yu's wealth, but also because they didn't want to be enemies with House Yu. Whatever House Yu wanted, they would get it no matter how much money they had. So as long as House Yu raised their card, everyone else would give up. House Yu understood this as well, and so they wouldn't raise their card easily. Doing so would ruin the reputation of their auction. They would only make an exception if there was something they absolutely had to get. Just like now, House Yu was actually bidding for a pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. This meant that House Yu was determined to get the pill this time, and the pill was confirmed as well. However, House Yu wouldn't do something that would be criticized by others. Haitian's bid was the same price as the previous pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, so it wasn't considered bullying the weak. It was a very fair deal for the seller. After House Yu's bid, no one else bid, and so Haitian successfully won the second pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. The third pill of life extension and toxin cleansing appeared, and it was also the last one. Many people were rubbing their palms together, but they really couldn't bear to spend 200 million on a pill. They weren't House Yu, nor were they House Lu, nor were they the nouveau riche Fatty Lie. They had other businesses that needed money, and this 280 million was a little too much. Chapter 492. The final auction. It looks like the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing is very popular. Now, let's start the auction for the last pill. Guests who are determined to get it, don't hold back. Remember, this is the last one. The last one. The auctioneer excitedly took out the last pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. He also hoped that this final pill of life extension and toxin cleansing could create a miracle and break through the previous two prices. The auction began, and the first to jump out was still Fatty Lie. Fatty Lie was still wiggling his fat, but as he raised his bidding card, 200 million. Wah! The people in the hall didn't expect Fatty Lie to bid 200 million this time, but they understood after some thought. Fatty Lie had failed twice before, and this was his last chance. If he didn't seize this chance, there wouldn't be another one in the future. The one who couldn't understand Fatty Lie's bidding was Haitian. He'd gotten the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, but the more he thought about it, the more shocked he became. This pill was a good item. "Uncle, should we bid for another one?" "No." The middle-aged man shook his head. "You've already lowered the price for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Lai Chungi didn't increase the price because of House Yu. I'm sure the others are the same. If you continue to fight, you'll lose out. That's not House Yu's style." "Ah, lowered?" Haitian blinked. "Keep watching and you'll know." The middle-aged man said faintly, "I'm afraid the price this time will exceed 300 million. Haitian was filled with regret at his uncle's words. He was still young and hadn't thought things through. He'd thought that he'd just bid the highest price in the first round, but it was still too low. Under normal circumstances, if there were several similar items being auctioned in an auction, the price of the first auction item would be higher, and the price of the remaining items would decrease accordingly. This was because the buyers had already competed with each other, and the remaining prices would only be lower. But this time, it was obvious that something unexpected had happened. Lu Qianni wanted to join in the fun, but when he heard the price of 200 million, he gave up. He didn't want to bid anymore. Although the Liu family was rich, a lot of it was real estate and securities, which couldn't be sold at all. Moreover, even if he had liquid funds, he couldn't possibly use them all to buy pills, right? 210 million. A young man from an aristocratic family raised his bidding card after getting the tacit approval of his elders. However, he was immediately looked down upon by the others. Other people increased the price by tens of millions, but he only increased it by 10 million. Wasn't that too little? 250 million. Fatty Lai said generously. Dr. Kong frowned. He'd wanted to bid during the second round, but he didn't expect House Yu to beat him to it. He didn't dare compete with House Yu, so he could only wait until the third round. But judging from Fatty Lai's expression, he was determined to get the pill. Dr. Kong was starting to panic. Lin Yi and Guan Shuimin had been sitting the whole time, and it was Fatty Lai who'd stood up and raised his bidding card. No one could see Lin Yi and Guan Shuimin clearly, not even Dr. Kong. 280 million. Under Dr. Kang's signal, Kong Guifeng bid a higher price, the same as the 2 pills of life extension and toxin cleansing. He'd thought that Fatty Lai wouldn't compete, but life was full of surprises. 300 million. Fatty Lai clenched his teeth and raised his bidding card without hesitation. The crowd froze for a moment, but they all understood why Fatty Lai would bid 300 million. He'd given up the first time because he'd still have another chance. The second time, it was House Yu who'd made the bid. Fatty Lai didn't want to compete, nor did he dare, so he'd given up. The third time was his last chance, and he had to grit his teeth and fight for it. With that, 300 million wasn't that high anymore. Dr. Kong was so angry, he wanted to curse. This Fatty Lai was too much of a bully, wasn't he? He didn't increase the price when Liu Qianni bid, and he didn't increase the price when Haitian bid. But when it came to Dr. Kong, he raised it to 300 million. With the previous example, Dr. Kong thought that 280 million was more or less within his grasp, but it seemed that things weren't as simple as he'd thought. Dad, what do we do? Kong Guifeng frowned. This is the last pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, and that damn Fatty seems determined to get it. Xiao Ji and Xiao Ben, on the other hand, were confused. Elder Kong, is this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing really something good? Dr. Kong didn't answer them, but turned to Kong Guifeng instead. It doesn't matter if he's determined to get it or not. We have to get this last pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. This is very important to our family. I understand. Kong Guifeng obviously knew what his father meant. Once the ingredients of this pill were analyzed, then the day of House Kang's meteoric rise was just around the corner. This might be an ancient medicine that has been lost for a long time, Dr. Kong said to Kong Guifeng before explaining to the Xiao family brothers. After I buy one, I plan to study it. Oh, I see. No wonder it's so expensive. It's a lost ancient medicine. Xiao Ji said, understanding dawning on him. Then we have to buy it. With your knowledge, Elder Kong, I'm sure you'll succeed. Ha, that's not for sure. Isn't the one who discovered this pill some miracle doctor company? They haven't figured it out yet. Have they? I can only give it a try. Xiao Ji's words were very pleasing to the ears, and it made Dr. Kong very happy. On the other side, Kong Guifeng had already started bidding. 320 million. 350 million. Fatty Lai didn't wait for the auctioneer to speak, calling out an even higher price. Kong Guifeng froze, a layer of cold sweat forming on his forehead. This Fatty Lai sure was rich, daring enough to raise the price. Continue. Dr. Kong didn't want to spend so much money, but he was rich, after all. Dr. Kang's medical group had close to 500 million in liquid assets, and he could still use it. 380 million. Kong Guifeng continued raising his paddle. Fatty hesitated for a moment, but just when the auctioneer called out 380 million going once, Fatty jumped out again. 400 million. Fatty called out his own price. Chapter 493. Changes in the auction, but Fatty Lie and Dr. Kang's family were at odds with each other. What kind of person was Dr. Kang? He was a tycoon in the medical world, and even he was willing to pay such a high price for a pill. How could it be a normal pill? The crowd was starting to regret not joining the bidding when the first pill was brought out, allowing Lu Qianni to take advantage of the situation. The price was now at 400 million, and it might not even be the final price. As expected, Kang Guifeng raised his paddle again under Dr. Kang's signal. 410 million. He didn't dare raise the bid too much this time. House Kang only had about 500 million in liquid assets, and if he were to raise the bid too much, they'd run out of liquid assets, and their business would be affected. But after Kang Guifeng raised the bid, Fatty Lie didn't make a sound. Those who didn't know the situation would think that Fatty Lie was out of money and was hesitating or giving up. Fatty Lie, however, smiled at Lin Yi. Boss, I think House Kang's at their limit. I'll raise the bid one more time, and they'll definitely be able to keep up, but it'll be hard to say if I raise it again. Yeah, that's enough. Lin Yi smiled. This Fatty Lie was quite sarcastic, but Lin Yi didn't have a good impression of Dr. Kang's family. He wouldn't stop Fatty Lie from messing with them. 410 million going once, 410 million going twice. The auctioneer paused and looked at Fatty Lie to see if he was going to raise the bid. Dr. Kang was seething with anger. What kind of game was this auctioneer playing? Why was he looking at Fatty Lie if he didn't have the guts to go in for the third time? Wasn't he encouraging Fatty Lie to go against him? However, the auctioneer's encouragement was effective. Fatty Lie gritted his teeth and stood up abruptly, raising his paddle. 420 million. Dr. Kang's heart turned cold. Mother of asterisk cur. Isn't this auctioneer too mean? But this was House Yu's auction house. Even if Dr. Kang had something to say, he couldn't say it out loud. He could only swallow his anger and signal Kang Guifeng to continue. This time, Dr. Kang had already decided to bet his treasure on the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Judging from the current situation, there were probably only 3 of these pills left. If he missed this one, there wouldn't be any left. Hence, Dr. Kang had no choice but to grit his teeth and bear with it. 430 million. Kang Guifeng raised the bidding board in his hand. 430 million going once, 430 million going twice, 430 million going thrice sold. The auctioneer wanted Fatty Lie to continue bidding, but regrettably, Fatty Lie backed off this time. He was out of money and decided to give up. He sat there quietly, not moving an inch. The happiest person right now was Lu Qianni. He was feeling great. He thought that 280 million for a pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was expensive, but now he felt like he'd gotten a great deal. Fatty Lie didn't even get the last pill for 420 million. It was Dr. Kang's family who got it for 430 million, but he was wrong. He thought he was the happiest person, but that wasn't the case. The happiest person was Fatty Lie. He played everyone in the hall. These 3 elixirs had brought the company nearly 1 billion yuan in profit. This was an important stage of the company's development. With 1 billion yuan, they could do a lot of things. Fatty Lie did want to bid for one earlier, but since Lin Yi had already agreed to give him one, he didn't want to mess things up anymore. Boss, I didn't think we'd have so much money all of a sudden. Fatty Lie chuckled. Lin Yi didn't think that 3 normal bone and marrow cleansing pills could sell for so much money. Old Lin had packed them into jars for him to eat when he was young. You won't be left out. Lin Yi was very impressed with Fatty Lie's business acumen. If Fatty Lie hadn't messed things up today, the 3 pills of life extension and toxin cleansing wouldn't have sold for such a high price. Thank you, boss. Fatty Lie nodded excitedly. However, just as the auctioneer was about to introduce the next item, someone from the guest seat spoke up. Good things should be shared with everyone. Little Yu Haitian, Ask the seller if they still have the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. We haven't even started bidding, and the item is already gone. This isn't fair. The person who spoke was the head of the Iron Fist Wu family, Wu Gongao. His name was very well chosen. Wu Gongao naturally meant that he was highly skilled in martial arts. It was a bit of a boast, but it was well deserved. He was one of the few remaining mystic class masters in the common world. Only he dared to speak to someone from House Yu like this. House Wu Iron Fist was an ancient noble house. Although they looked to be about the same age as Lu Qianni's House Lu, for a century-old noble house like this, which one of them didn't have a trump card, even the head of House Wu, Wu Gonggao's martial arts were enough to shock the audience. Even House Yu was wary of him. It could be said that as long as Wu Gonggao was in charge of House Wu Iron Fist, no one dared to underestimate them. Wu Gongggao rushed over after receiving a call from his grandson Wu Qintian. He was in Yanjing as well, and had come to House Yu's auction, but a head of a house like him would rarely attend the first and second day of the auction. The first two auctions were usually attended by the descendants of the house, and he would only attend the last one himself. But when he heard that there was a pill of life extension and toxin cleansing that had a price of 280 million, and that House Yu was making a move, he couldn't sit still anymore. He rushed over to the auction site, just in time for the auctioneer's final hammer strike. Chantian, on the other hand, took a look at the introduction of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing and immediately felt that it was similar to the long-lost bone cleansing pill in Wulin. His interest was piqued, and he interrupted the auction unwillingly. If it were just a normal noble house's disciple or a rich merchant asking, Haitian would naturally have an excuse to reject him, but the person asking was the head of House Wu Iron Fist Wu Gongggao, a mystic class master. He naturally didn't dare ignore him, and looked at his second uncle, asked Mr. Lai Changyi for his opinion. The middle-aged man hesitated before speaking faintly. If there's more, it's fine to take out a few more. We won't take a cut. Chapter 494. Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Company, Limited. In an auction, if an item was sold very well and wasn't unique, then the auction house would contact the seller at the last minute and ask if there were any other similar items to be auctioned. So it wasn't strange for Haitian to call Lai Changyi right now. Mr. Lai, the response to the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing is quite good. Do you have another treasure like that in your hands? You heard it yourself, there are some guests who haven't had the chance to buy it yet. Haitian asked casually. He didn't think much of Fatty Lai before, but his attitude was much better now. I'm sorry, Mr. Yu, but I only have 3 now. I won't be able to bring out a 4th in this auction. No matter what, Fatty Lai said apologetically. Is that so? That's a shame. Haitian sighed. Looks like I'll have to go on stage and explain. Why don't I go and explain? I can also explain why this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing is so rare, Fatty Lai said. Sure, I'll have to trouble you then, Mr. Lai. If Lai Changyi were to personally explain the situation, it would save Haitian a lot of trouble. Otherwise, if someone came looking for him for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, even though he was the person in charge of the auction, he wouldn't be able to produce the extra pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Now that Fatty Lai was shouldering all the responsibility, it couldn't be any better. After hanging up, Fatty Lai twisted his fat body and walked up to the auction stage under everyone's surprised gazes. Greetings, guests. I represent Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company to express our sincerest apologies. Fatty Lai held the microphone in his hand and spoke to the people below the stage. All the guests were dumbfounded. Fatty Lai was from Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company? Then why did he participate in the auction? Could it be that he was selling and buying, driving up the price? Instantly, many of the guests frowned at Fatty Lai's actions. Fatty Lai's actions were very inappropriate, although there was nothing wrong with it, Everyone knew the rules of the auction, and how she would take a cut of the profits. But Fatty Lie's actions would damage his reputation. Miracle Dr. Kong was the angriest of them all. Tianny wasn't that far off, but the price he bid was already very cheap, so he wasn't too conflicted. Dr. Kong, on the other hand, was different. That was 430 million. Most of the family's cash flow had been used up, but Fatty Lie had tricked him. The ingredients for this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing are very rare, and the refining process is very complicated. Professor Guan used almost a year to refine 5 pills, and 3 of them were auctioned off. Fatty Lie shook his head as he continued. Fatty Lie's words calmed the crowd down a little. 5 pills in a year, and the ingredients were rare. This pill was a priceless treasure. If it was said that Dr. Kong had refined it, the people present might have doubted it. But if it was said that Guan Xueming had refined it, everyone believed it. In the eyes of these aristocratic families, Guan Xueming was already a divine doctor. But weren't there still 2 left? Where did they go? As for the remaining 2, one of them was given to Miracle Dr. Kong by another partner of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company during his birthday banquet. The other one was taken by my father. Fatty Lie blurted out the whereabouts of the other 2 pills of life extension and toxin cleansing. Naturally, he wouldn't tell anyone that the pill his father took was actually Dr. Kang's. The people who knew Fatty Lie finally understood why his father had recovered so quickly. He was in a coma from uremia, on the verge of death. But now his body was as good as new. These people beat their chests and stomped their feet, regretting that they didn't act earlier. Now, there were only 5 left, and now they were all gone. Of course, the most embarrassed person was Dr. Kong. His face was burning. He just told Xiaoji that the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was a lost product of ancient times. But now it was Guan Xueming's doing. Not only that, but he'd even given you a pill of life extension and toxin cleansing at your birthday banquet. How could you say that it was a unique item? However, Xiaoji didn't voice his disdain because he was on the same side as House Kong. If Dr. Kong was embarrassed, they wouldn't have it easy either. But Fatty Lie's next words made Dr. Kong feel a little better. So, these 3 are the only 3 left. I may be the CEO of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, but I don't have the right to own a pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. So when I found out about the effects of this pill, I couldn't help but participate in the bidding, but I didn't get it in the end. It's a pity. I see. The guests heard Fatty Lie's words and understood his actions. Fatty Lie really wanted to buy it, and he wasn't trying to mess things up. If they didn't want it, then he would. As for why Fatty Lie raised the price from the start, it was simple. He knew the true value of the pill, and so people dared to bid. But I'll discuss with Professor Guan when I get back. We'll see if we can bring out some other good items to auction in the 3rd auction. Fatty Lie finished speaking and bowed to everyone. Thank you all for your love for our Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. Our products will be sold after the auction. After that, Fatty Lie walked down the stage. The audience was very interested in the items that Fatty Lie mentioned in the 3rd auction. They were all discussing whether this Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company would bring them any surprises. Guan Xueming's name had always been resounding among these aristocratic families and wealthy merchants. His acupuncture skills were even more superb, but Miracle Dr. Guan didn't care about fame and fortune. Even if there were people who wanted to get close to him, they didn't have much of a relationship with him. But who would have thought that Guan Xueming would set up a company with someone else and set up the Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company? Was he going against Dr. Kang's medical company? Or did Guan Xueming suddenly want to earn money? Chapter 495. Chapter 495. Meeting an old friend. Fatty Lie's words were smooth, but he didn't say a single thing about the actual problem. whether or not the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing would be available in the future, and when he also didn't say what items would be added for the third auction, and whether or not they would be added was still unknown. But even with this kind of slick and ambiguous attitude, the people present were still very excited and expectant. Vague things always let people's imagination run wild. You sure know how to talk. That's as good as not saying anything. Lin E smiled faintly as he watched Fatty Lie come down. Haha, that's true. How can we just say things like that? It's a trade secret. Fatty Lie smiled shyly. But boss, do you think we'll be auctioning anything else for the third auction? What else? Lin E didn't have anything prepared, but it wasn't too late to prepare now. I heard that Dr. Kang's auctioning some special edition golden creation medicine tomorrow. I heard that it heals wounds faster than normal medicine. Fatty Lie said. Why don't we auction some special edition golden creation medicine as well? I've already offended him to death. And once our medicine hits the market, we'll be competitors. We don't have to worry about making enemies with them. HM? Lin Yi's interest was piqued when he heard that Dr. Kong had special edition golden creation medicine in the auction as well. Let me think. Let's see what I can come up with. Let's see if it can surpass his. That's great. As expected of the boss. Fatty Lie nodded repeatedly. That's true. It'd be meaningless if it were the same as them. It'd look like we're trying to copy him. The following auction items were all ordinary items. Of course, this was only relative, because even if these items were to be brought to an ordinary auction, they would be considered top-notch items. It was just that everyone here had seen the world, so they weren't too surprised by these things. None of the bids were higher than the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. In fact, they weren't even a tenth of the price. Lin wasn't interested anymore. So Fatty Lie left his seat and went to the back stage of the auction to handle the handover procedures. The profits from the 3 pills, minus the money spent on the sheepskin map, were all deposited into Fatty Lie's account. After the paperwork was done, Fatty Lie returned with the map and handed it to Lin E. Lin E opened it and glanced at it, then put it away. This was not the place to study these things, and Lin E did not intend to study them, at least not now. Including the piece at home, Lin E only had 2 pieces of the map. He didn't know how big the map was and how many pieces it was divided into, so the 2 pieces he had were practically useless. Lin E had asked Fatty Lie to bid for it out of curiosity. He didn't expect the map to bring him any benefits. It was just a spur-of-the-moment decision. The auction ended quickly. Other than the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, none of the other items had this kind of effect. After a few bids, the auction ended abruptly. There was nothing special about the first day's auction, and it was the same every year. It was just that the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was a special case. Lin E, Fatty Lie, and Guan Shuamin stood up and prepared to leave, but they saw Dr. Kong looking in their direction. His face froze when he saw Lin E and Guan Shuamin. Lin E nodded at him and smiled. Dr. Kong had long suspected that Lin E was a second-generation heir, so he only frowned when he saw him with Fatty Lie and Guan Shuamin. As far as he was concerned, Guan Shuamin's business career was all thanks to Lin E and Fatty Lie. The investor was most likely Fatty Lie, and this Lin E probably had some shares as well. But Dr. Kong didn't think much of it. The person he was afraid of was Fatty Lie, the veteran businessman. Lin E. Xiao couldn't believe what she was seeing. She rubbed her eyes and confirmed that it was Lin E. She ran over and cried out in joy. Lin E. Lin E. Lin E turned around and looked at Xiao, surprised. He didn't understand why he would see her here. Lin E didn't believe that Xiao followed him here, because he didn't see her at all when he boarded the plane. The only possibility was that it was a coincidence. He smiled bitterly. Why are you here? Yeah, why are you here? Xiao asked at the same time. I'm just looking around with my friends. Lin E smiled. I still have something to do. I'll be going. Lin Yi didn't want to get too close to Xiao Xiao. This girl's way of thinking was a little weird, and it made Lin Yi want to stay away from her. Are you coming tomorrow? Are we going to sit together? Xiao Xiao was annoyed. Why was Lin Yi so cold to her? But on the surface, she looked at Lin Yi expectantly and asked pitifully, "We'll talk about it tomorrow." Lin Yi didn't want to waste time with her. "All right, I'll come find you tomorrow." Xiao Xiao remembered that her dad was still waiting for her. She didn't want to talk too much with Lin Yi, but seeing Lin Yi here gave her an inexplicable sense of excitement. It was a feeling she couldn't quite put her finger on. Meeting an old friend in a foreign land? Or was it a chance for her to make Lin Yi fall in love with her? Or was it because she was bored? At that moment, Gong Gao and Chun Tian walked over briskly. Gong Gao was tempted after learning that Guan Shuamin was the one who'd made the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. He wanted to talk to Guan Shuamin and see if he could get him another one. "Professor Guan, long time no see. I've missed you." Gong Gao was wearing a long robe, looking quite like a martial artist. He cupped his fists excitedly when he saw Shuamin. "Ha ha, Elder Wu, how are you?" Shuamin nodded with a smile. He'd given Gong Gao acupuncture before, so he wasn't a stranger, but he didn't act overly friendly or familiar. Shuamin's attitude towards noble houses had always been neutral, and he didn't get too close to any of them. Even the famous House Yu and the Iron Fist Wu. "Thanks to Professor Guan, I'm still healthy, but I'll have to trouble Miracle Dr. Guan to give me acupuncture when you're free," Gong Gao said very politely. Chapter 496. A tense situation, that's not a problem. Elder Wu, just come visit me in Songshan when you're free. Shuamin didn't decline the offer, but he definitely wouldn't go to the noble houses to treat them. Shuamin's temper was something that all the noble houses and merchants knew of. He was willing to see patients, and he didn't care about the fees, but he never went out to see patients. If he was sick, he'd come to Songshan. This was also because Shuamin was also teaching at the University of Medicine and Medicine. In his eyes, he was a professor, and teaching was his duty. So no matter what happened, he couldn't let his students get in the way of teaching. "All right, I'll be sure to visit soon." Gong Gao nodded with a smile. "Grandpa, this is the guy I told you about. Not only did he seduce Sun Jingyi, but he even pretended to be some bullshit miracle doctor. He's obviously a liar. I even got slapped by my aunt because of him." Chun Tian abruptly realized that Lin Yi, who was standing beside Shuamin, felt an uncontrollable sense of humiliation. He lost his mind instantly, pointing at Lin Yi and yelling at him. Chun Tian had been raised too high by the house recently and was being groomed as the third-generation heir, but it made sense a young man in his 20s reaching golden class early phase. What kind of achievement was that? He was probably the only one in this world. Of course, that was only what House Wu thought. And so, House Wu put all the benefits on Qin Tian's head, creating his arrogant and domineering personality. He wouldn't take a single loss, and he'd always take revenge. And so, when he saw Lin Yi, he didn't even think before insulting him. Shuamin's face darkened. In his eyes, Lin Yi was both a teacher and a friend. No matter how bad he was still a senior brother. And so, naturally, he wasn't happy that someone was insulting Lin Yi like that. He looked at Gong Gao and said faintly, "Elder Wu, we'll be leaving if there's nothing else." Wu Gonggao's expression froze. He did not expect that Guan Shuamin would stand up for Lin Yi. He was in a difficult position. Wu Gonggao was famous for being protective of his own people. Furthermore, this grandson of his was extremely talented. Naturally, he treasured him a lot. Whatever he wanted, he would give it to him. No one could say or touch him. Since his grandson was in trouble, he would naturally stand up for him. Who cared whose fault it was and who the other party was? But now, Guan Shuamin was one of the few people he didn't dare to offend. With Guan Shuamin here, he naturally couldn't cause trouble for Lin Yi. He glanced at Lin Yi indifferently and remembered his face, preparing to find a chance to teach him a lesson. However, Wu Gonggao did not say anything, but some people were unwilling and directly blew up the temple. Who are you calling a liar? Look at you. You're the liar. You're worse than a fart. Xiao Xiao didn't like it when this person insulted Lin Yi for no reason at all. Who was she? She was playing the role of Lin Yi's pursuer, and this person insulted Lin Yi. Wasn't that the same as insulting her for her lack of taste for falling for a liar? And so, naturally, Xiao Xiao was unwilling. She glared at Chen Tian, and if there weren't so many people around, she would have kicked him. Who was Xiao Xiao? Beating people up was nothing out of the ordinary. Chen Tian was furious to hear that someone was insulting him for Lin Yi. He was about to say something, but when he saw that it was a pretty girl, he couldn't say anything. Don't get involved. This has nothing to do with you. The young has no manners, and the old has no manners? Xiao Xiao curled her lips. Hey, old man, your grandson has no manners at all. Aren't you going to teach him a lesson? What did you say, you little girl? Gonggao's face flashed with anger as he looked at Xiao Xiao coldly, his fist turning into a palm. As the head of the Iron Fist Wu house, he had to teach a junior a lesson for talking to him like that. Where would his face go? Where would House Wu's face go? You old man, what are you doing? Xiao Xiao was startled. She didn't know martial arts, but she could feel the killing intent coming from Gonggao. Mystic early phase. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. Wu Gonggao and Chen Tian were both physical practitioners, so he couldn't feel the energy in their bodies. He could only sense their strength level when they used their physical practitioner's arts. He didn't expect this old man to be this strong. Lin Yi moved his body subconsciously, smiling bitterly. No matter what, Xiao Xiao was standing up for him, just now. No matter what her intentions were, Lin Yi couldn't just leave her be. Otherwise, it'd be too much. So as soon as Gonggao made his move, Lin Yi planned to block it for Xiao Xiao. Although the opponent was a mystic early phase, Lin Yi was a golden class late phase peak, and he practiced the art of Dragon Slayer. Naturally, he had the confidence to take a hit from a mystic early phase. He couldn't guarantee victory, but he could protect himself. But Lin Yi's move was unnecessary. The moment he moved, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Xiao Xiao, looking at Gonggao calmly. Elder Wu, are you going to attack my daughter? Gonggao paused, his face changing. How could he not know Feng Tianlong? Gonggao took a deep breath, knowing that he couldn't do anything today. It was impossible to teach Xiao Xiao a lesson. What Gonggao was afraid of wasn't Tianlong's golden class mid-phase strength. In the eyes of a mystic early phase, a golden class was nothing. Of course, what he was afraid of wasn't Tianlong's background. The Supernatural Investigation Department was a mysterious organization, and their power was shocking, but that was for normal people. For a noble house like Gonggao, although he wouldn't make them his enemy, he wasn't afraid of them either. What Gonggao was afraid of was the person who had retired for more than 10 years, Tianlong's former captain. That person used to be a member of the Supernatural Investigation Department's Special Task Force and had brought Tianlong on missions before. He had a close relationship with Tianlong. If it wasn't Tianlong, Gonggao might not give face to someone else, but he had to give face to Tianlong. In that person's eyes, even an Earth class would be nothing to him, let alone a mystic early phase. Although he didn't know how strong that person was, Gonggao knew that if he pissed him off, House Wu would be finished. It would only take a day. Fu. Gonggao let out a long breath and smiled awkwardly. So it's Captain Feng. Why would I attack your daughter? I was just joking. Chapter 497. Was he your boyfriend? Feng Tianlong had just received a phone call when he saw his daughter running over here. If he had come a second later, he would have regretted it. Oh, Xiao Xiao wasn't stupid. She knew that the old man would have done something to her if her father hadn't come. But the old man was clearly afraid of her father, and Xiao Xiao didn't know the reason behind it. She thought that the old man was afraid of her father, and that made her happy. Professor Guan, it's been a while. I've been wanting to pay you a visit in the next couple of days. Tianlong was very happy to see Guan Shuimin there. As well, he'd been wanting to pay him a visit in the next couple of days to ask about the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Tianlong and Guan Shuimin knew each other, but Guan Shuimin couldn't do anything after checking on Xiao Xiao's condition. He'd heard that even Lin Dongfang couldn't do anything back then. So how could he? But just because he couldn't do anything a few years ago didn't mean he couldn't now. As long as there was a sliver of hope, Tianlong wouldn't let it go. It's Feng. Long time no see. Guan Shuimin smiled. I'm always free. Just give me a call. Guan Shuimin was noticeably friendlier to Tianlong, and that pissed Gong Gao off. He humphed and pulled Qintian away. All right, I'll be going then. Professor Guan. Tianlong had just gotten a phone call, and something came up. He had to hurry back, so he couldn't chat with Guan Shuimin. He'd have to visit another day. All right, Guan Shuimin nodded. Tianlong was about to leave with Xiao Xiao when he saw Lin Yi from the corner of his eyes. His face changed. Ha! Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Tianlong had found him after all. In fact, Lin Yi was shocked when he saw Tianlong. He didn't expect Xiao Xiao to be Tianlong's daughter. Lin Yi kept trying to hide, but didn't manage to do so in the end. Lin Yi waved his hand, slightly, gesturing for him to keep quiet. Tianlong was a smart man. He knew that Lin Yi didn't want to expose his identity when he waved his hand, so he pretended not to see anything and pulled Xiao Xiao away. However, the lingering fear from before was gone. Instead, he mocked himself for being too nervous just now. Tianlong saw how Lin Yi moved his body slightly in front of Xiao Xiao, but he didn't think much about it. To him, it was just an accident. He didn't think that Lin Yi was going to block Gong Gao's attack for Xiao Xiao. Now that she knew that it was Lin Yi, she understood that Lin Yi's actions were to protect Xiao Xiao. With his protection, Xiao Xiao would definitely be fine. Tianlong knew how strong Lin Yi was. Although he wasn't Wu Gonggao's opponent, he could still deal with him. Xiao Xiao, do you know them? Feng Tianlong asked, without any change in his expression. He didn't understand. How did Xiao Xiao know Lin Yi? From the looks of it, it seemed like they knew each other. Yeah, that Lin Yi is my deskmate at school. Xiao Xiao nodded. Xiao Xiao nodded, feeling a little weird. Didn't her dad care a lot about her? Wah! Tianlong's eyes went wide as he looked at Xiao Xiao in disbelief. You're saying he's your classmate? Your deskmate? Yeah, what's wrong? Xiao Xiao looked at her dad, confused. She didn't understand why her dad was looking at her like that. No, nothing. Tianlong shook his head. Lin Yi wasn't part of the department, but he did cooperate with them on a few missions. But even so, with Lin Yi's identity, why would he go to school? He was a third-year high school student and his daughter's deskmate. Wasn't this a little too unbelievable? But he couldn't tell Xiao Xiao too much about Lin Yi. He had his doubts, but he could only bury them in his heart. He wasn't too sure about Lin Yi's identity, and it was the higher-ups who arranged for him to cooperate with the department's missions. Xiao Xiao, go back to the hotel first. Dad has something urgent to deal with, and might not come back tonight. I might be busy tomorrow too. Feng Tianlong was in a difficult position. He just said that he wanted to play with his daughter for a few days, but now he had something else to do. It's fine, you go. I'll invite my classmate to the auction tomorrow. Xiao Xiao wasn't angry this time. She waved her hand casually. Xiao Xiao's attitude surprised Tianlong, but then he remembered how his daughter protected Lin Yi. Could it be that his daughter had feelings for him? Was she starting to like boys? And that boy was Lin Yi? Thinking of this possibility, Feng Tianlong jumped in fright. But Tianlong didn't object to his daughter's puppy love like other parents, because his daughter's situation was special. Quite the opposite, he wanted her to find a boyfriend and give him a grandson or granddaughter. That way, if something really happened to his daughter, he wouldn't have to spend the rest of his life alone. And his daughter's lover was Lin Yi. Tianlong supported it even more. He had seen how outstanding Lin Yi was. Tianlong wouldn't object if Xiao Xiao found someone else, but wouldn't it be better if she found someone he was satisfied with? Tianlong didn't want his daughter to run around, but if she really was with Lin Yi tomorrow, then Lin Yi would be able to protect her. He wasn't worried anymore. You're talking about that, Lin Yi? Tianlong came to the parking lot and asked Xiao Xiao after getting in the car. Yeah. Xiao Xiao felt a little embarrassed. Judging from her dad's tone, he seemed to have realized something. But other than embarrassment, Xiao Xiao wasn't afraid. She was just playing around with Lin Yi right now. Even if she really got together with Lin Yi, she wouldn't care. She had always been a troublemaker since she was young. It didn't matter if her father was angry or not. Xiao Xiao, is he your boyfriend? Tianlong started the car and asked suddenly, Xiao Xiao didn't expect her father to be so direct. She paused and stuttered. No. Feng, Tianlong asked back, didn't you seem to be quite protective of him? Ugh, we're classmates and desk mates. Of course, I'm protective. Xiao Xiao was embarrassed. She wasn't afraid of anything, but she was still a little shy when it came to relationships. Chapter 498. We sell hardcover editions. To Chapter 498. Selling hardcover editions. Huh? Xiao Xiao's eyes went wide as she looked at her father in disbelief. What did you say? What I mean is, Xiao Xiao, you're not young anymore. You should find a boyfriend, right? Tianlong coughed, feeling that this wasn't the right time to talk about this with his daughter, but he had to because of Xiao Xiao's special condition. Tianlong couldn't help but have this thought. Other parents didn't want their children to fall in love early, let alone have a child out of wedlock, but Tianlong wanted his daughter to give him a child as soon as possible. In truth, Tianlong knew deep down that there was no way to cure his daughter's illness. Even if he ran all over the place, the chances were slim. Even if a miracle doctor were to appear, extending her life by a few years would be the most he could do. A full recovery was a pipe dream. This was why Tianlong was so desperate for his daughter to get a boyfriend. He wanted to see his daughter's life continue, and he didn't care about anything else right now. There's no need for that, right? Xiao Xiao was even more embarrassed. Why would I get a boyfriend? I won't say much about that. Just take care of yourself. Tianlong smiled and drove away. After dropping Xiao Xiao off at the hotel, Tianlong said a few words and quickly drove away. The people there were waiting for him, so Tianlong had to leave first. Xiao Xiao was alone in the hotel, thinking about what her dad had just said. What did he mean? Supporting her to get a boyfriend? Xiao Xiao felt that it was odd. She wasn't even at the age to get married yet. Xiao Xiao suddenly remembered her special condition. Wasn't her mother the same age when she gave birth to her? Xiao Xiao's hereditary condition was rather weird. It was only passed down to females, not males. If it was a boy, it wouldn't be a problem, but it was a girl. She remembered hearing her father talk about her mother when she was young, and it seemed like her grandpa was in a rush to get her mother to be with her father, and the two didn't even register their marriage before they had her. But her father was a devoted man and didn't remarry after all these years. Her father was probably thinking the same thing as her grandpa back then, right? Xiao Xiao shook her head. But times had changed and she was still a high schooler. Getting a boyfriend and having a child, wouldn't that be a little weird? Xiao Xiao had never thought about this before because as far as she was concerned in her short life, friendship didn't exist and love didn't exist. Xiao Xiao didn't want to get involved with anyone, and she didn't need other people's sympathy. She didn't want the pain of death. Therefore, in the past 18 years, she had no close friends, only a group of scoundrels. She had never fallen for a boy because she didn't want to face that kind of unbearable pain. But Tianlong's words made Xiao Xiao fall into deep thought for the first time. Find a boyfriend? Can I? Can I like others too? Xiao Xiao smiled bitterly and shook her head. Who would like her? Finding a girlfriend like me who's about to die. Isn't it just bad luck from 8 lifetimes? Before he could do anything, he was already gone. Huh? Xiao Xiao suddenly thought of Lin Yi. If that was the case, Lin Yi would fall in love with her. Even if she didn't dump him, he would still be in pain, right? With that thought, Xiao Xiao made up her mind. Second uncle, Lai Changyi, and the others left. The young man who was bidding against Fatty Lai for the sheepskin map said quietly into his earpiece, Cohen, follow them and see which hotel they're staying at. Then find out who that young man with Lai Changyi is. The middle-aged man beside Haitian ordered. Yes. The young man called Little Cohen nodded. After exiting the auction house, his figure flashed and disappeared into the boundless night. Fatty Lai didn't have a car in Yenjing, and the hotel they were staying at wasn't too far from the auction hall. It was only about 1 kilometer on foot. Fatty Lai might be fat, but he had a good body. Guan Shuamin had a healthy body, and taking a stroll once in a while was good for his health. Lin Yi was even better. So the three didn't take a taxi but walked to the hotel. It was a good opportunity for some exercise, and they could get some supper at the hotel's restaurant. Boss, have you thought about what we're going to auction? Fatty Lai reminded Lin Yi, afraid that he'd forgotten about the auction. Fatty Lai was still thinking about the auction again. I haven't thought about it yet. Lin Yi frowned, deep in thought. Dr. Kong was auctioning off the special edition of Golden Creation. If he were to take out a special edition injury medicine as well, he'd be following the trend. Boss, I think we should make a special edition injury medicine as well. They have it and we have it too. It'd save us the trouble. Fatty Lai suggested, seeing that Lin Yi was in a difficult position. Isn't that following the trend? Wouldn't we be at a disadvantage? Lin Yi asked, that, boss, I don't have a choice. We're still in the early stages of our company, and I don't plan on releasing too many types of medicine. The pill of life extension and toxin cleansing is enough. If we release too many types of medicine, we won't be able to showcase the benefits of our medicine and painkillers. Plus, we need to slowly reveal our trump cards. Bringing them out all at once isn't in line with our business goals, Fatty Lai said. Then, let's make it a special edition injury medicine. Lin Yi nodded, already having a plan in mind. Our special edition injury medicine is different from Dr. Kang's. I've added a few herbs into the medicine, and it's very effective on old scars. It can quickly remove rot and regenerate flesh. Huh? Fatty Lai's eyes widened, looking at Lin Yi in disbelief. Boss, is there really such a miraculous medicine? It's not that miraculous. It's just adding a few other herbs on top of the injury medicine. It's just that the cost is much higher. Lin Yi shrugged as he spoke calmly. It's fine if the cost is a little higher. It's a premium product, and we won't add the normal version, Fatty Lai said. According to the price of the special edition Dr. Kang's Golden Creation, every year, a box is worth more than 500,000. Oh, that's quite high. It's definitely enough to cover the cost. Lin Yi was surprised. A box of Golden Creation could sell for 500,000. Chapter 499. So low cost. So you're saying that there's more than one box of Dr. Kang's special edition Golden Creation every year? Lin Yi asked. One box? There's at least 20 boxes every year, but it's usually a limited price auction. The highest bid is 500,000, and it goes to whoever bids 500,000 first. It saves the tedious bidding process, Fatty Lai said. Fatty Lai said, 20 boxes, let's see who's faster. The first to bid 500,000 will get it first. So you're saying that each box is sold for 500,000? Linny nodded and continued asking, not really, but the first few boxes were sold for 500,000. And as the number of bidders dwindled, the price naturally dropped. There were 400,000 and 300,000. Fatty Lie said, 500,000 is fine. Let's see if there's a pharmacy nearby. I'll buy some more herbs. Linny nodded, thinking that the profit was fair. It wasn't as much as the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, but it wasn't a small amount. Most importantly, it could make a name for itself. Ugh. Fatty Lie was already used to Lin Yi's miraculous feats. Lin Yi was probably the only one who'd concocted medicine the night before the auction. He quickly said, then I'll contact someone to buy some high-quality packaging and send it over overnight. No need. I'll buy some disposable bottles and put them in. Linny waved his hand. Let them believe it or not. If they believe it, they'll bid. If they don't, they won't bid. That's true. There's no need to worry about selling good medicine. What's the point of giving them such good medicine? Fatty Lie nodded. It'll save us a lot of money. Ha! Lin Yi thought that Fatty Lie was really made for business. It seemed that leaving the medicine company to him was a wise decision. Right? What's the market price of Dr. Kang's golden creation? Dr. Kang's golden creation is 299 yuan a box, and our injury medicine, I think, will be priced at 288 yuan. Fatty Lie said, but I don't know what our cost is, so we haven't announced the price yet. What? We're selling it at 288 renminbi? Lin Yi's eyes widened. Dr. Kang actually sold a box of ordinary Jin Chuang medicine for nearly 300 renminbi. Wasn't this a little too much? Who would be able to afford something that concerned the livelihood of the people if it was so expensive? Lin Yi naturally waved his sword and slaughtered those who didn't like him. But as for those poor people, Lin Yi really didn't have the thought of swindling their money. Too cheap? Fatty Lie was shocked when he saw Lin Yi's expression. Boss, Dr. Kang's golden creation is only selling for 299, although the supply can't meet the demand. I'm afraid we won't be able to enter the market if we sell it at a higher price than him. I also know that our treatment is definitely better than his. Lin Yi heard Fatty Lie's words and knew that he had misunderstood. He couldn't help but smile. The cost of this thing is only a few kwai. I think it's a little expensive. Quack? How much? Fatty Lie froze and almost fell to the ground. Boss, did I hear it wrong? A few kwai? How is that possible? Then, is it the cost of Dr. Kang's golden creation also a few kwai? I don't know about his. I've never seen it before. Lin Yi shook his head. But this is our cost. I suggest that we sell it at a lower price so that normal people can afford it. All right. Then we'll be a company that benefits the people. Fatty Lie clenched his teeth and said with pain, then we'll sell it for 199. He was an unscrupulous businessman, but since Lin Yi said it, Fatty Lie couldn't insist. From his point of view, 288 would definitely sell well, and there might even be a situation where the supply couldn't meet the demand. 199? In fact, Lin Yi still felt that it was a little expensive, but he didn't know how much money a company needed to operate. Seeing Fatty Lie's painful expression, he nodded. Okay. Fatty Lie let out a sigh of relief. He was also afraid that Lin Yi would cut down another 100 kwai and make it 99 kwai. Then the profit would be much lower. Then I'll make a plan. The next time we auction our products, we'll announce the retail price. Fatty Lie nodded. Boss, how much do you think we should set the price for the painkiller? The cost of one dose is around 50 kwai. Of course, it'll be lower if we mass produce it. You decide the price, Lin Yi said. Okay, then we'll set a box of 5 at 199 kwai. Fatty Lie probed. 99, Lin Yi said after some thought. Okay, I'll listen to you, boss. In fact, Fatty Lie was afraid that Lin Yi would bargain with him, So he set the price a little higher to give Lin E some room to bargain. After confirming the price of the two drugs, Fatty Lie was relieved. Most importantly, he knew the cost of the drugs, which made him even happier. This meant that Lin E had already treated him as one of his own, and he was slowly telling him some of the core things. They passed by a larger pharmacy, and Lin E and the other two walked in. Lin E didn't use a prescription, but just dictated some herbs and let the attendant weigh them. Of course, although Lin E had built up some trust in Fatty Lie, it wasn't complete. When he was filling the prescription, he purposely added some useless herbs, and the dosage was also messed up. There were also a few main herbs that Lin E didn't mention. He only mentioned a few uncommon ones, but the attendant shook his head. It's okay. There are a lot of pharmacies in Yenjing. Let's go take a look at other pharmacies. Fatty Lie quickly said to Lin E, if it's not okay, I'll get someone to buy a car and send it over. No need for now. Let's go take a look at other pharmacies first. Lin E smiled. After filling the prescription, Fatty Lie rushed to pay first. It wasn't much, just a few hundred yuan. Guan Shuamin didn't say anything, and he didn't try to remember what Lin E bought. He was an honest man, and unless Lin E showed him the prescription, he wouldn't take the initiative to ask for someone else's prescription. Not long after the three left the pharmacy, the young man named Kun looked at Lin E and Fatty Lie's backs. He hesitated for a while, and then flashed into the pharmacy where Lin E bought his medicine. It was a straight path, and there weren't any crossroads on either side. That was why Kun entered the pharmacy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have risked getting lost. Waiter, may I ask what the three people bought just now? Kun asked the waiter in the pharmacy politely. Chapter 500. Someone's following you, Fatty Lie. Bring Grandpa Guan to the shop next door and wait for me. I'll go take care of something. Lin E suddenly stopped and ordered Fatty Lie. Oh, okay. Fatty Lie didn't know what Lin E was going to do, but Lin E didn't seem to have any intention of explaining. He didn't press the matter, and so he brought him to a store not far away. Lin E, on the other hand, turned around and walked quickly to the pharmacy he'd bought his medicine from. Lin E didn't expect to be followed on his first day in Yenjing. I'm sorry, sir. The attendant smiled sweetly at Kun. Our pharmacy has to keep our customers' privacy confidential. One had to admit that Kun was extremely handsome. He looked like the male lead in Korean dramas, and the attendant couldn't help but take a few more glances at him. Kun frowned. His looks had always been a lady killer, and he thought the attendant would tell him the truth. He didn't expect her to keep it a secret. Still, Kun didn't give up. He took out his wallet and took out a few hundred kwai bills, placing them on the counter. Pretty lady, give me some face. That guy was my buddy, and I don't know where he got this recipe from to buy my dad's medicine, but I don't know what he bought, and I'm afraid my dad might get sick from eating it. I want to make sure. I see. The average-looking attendant's heart skipped a beat. Kun's looks were pleasing, but the money on the counter was even more alluring. It was quite a temptation for a working girl like her. Her monthly salary was only 1,000 kwai, and Kun was giving her 500. It was hard for her to refuse. After some hesitation, the attendant quickly put away the money and took out a list from under the counter. She placed it on the counter. You can copy it, but you can't take it away. Kun picked up the list and glanced at it. He had an extraordinary memory, and it didn't take long for him to memorize the names of the medicines. He returned the list to the attendant. I'm a medical student, and I can tell if there are any conflicting medicines. There's nothing special, and there's no problem. I'll return it to you. Thank you. Oh, all right. The waitress breathed a sigh of relief. This was the first time she had done something like betraying a customer's privacy. She was not used to it. After hearing Xiao Kun say that there was no problem, she immediately felt relieved. Moreover, he only took a glance, so there should be no problem. Goodbye. Beautiful. Thank you. Xiao Kun turned around and walked out of the pharmacy. However, as soon as he walked out of the pharmacy, his face froze because he saw Lin Yi standing in front of him. "Why are you following me?" Lin Yi looked at little Kun and asked calmly. Lin Yi didn't want to cause any trouble in Beijing, but since someone was following him, Lin Yi couldn't just ignore it. Facing this kind of unknown danger, Lin Yi would usually choose to take action first. However, the jade didn't warn him, so this person shouldn't be too hostile towards him. So Lin Yi gave him a chance to explain and didn't kill this golden class mid-phase master right away. The person in front of him was at most in his early 20s, but he was able to have the strength of a mid-phase golden class. It was really not easy. "Following you? You must have mistaken me for someone else." Xiao Kun was only slightly shocked, but his expression returned to normal. However, there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. He didn't think that Lin Yi would find out that he was following him. Xiao Kun didn't deliberately hide himself when following these three people, but with his strength of the mid-phase golden class, it was a bit surprising that he was found out. "Really? You better not be." Lin Yi shrugged and remembered Xiao Kun's appearance. In the end, he gave up on the idea of killing him. Being in a foreign land, Lin Yi didn't want to attract too much trouble. Since this person in front of him didn't seem to have much hostility towards him, Lin Yi was only warning him. As long as he didn't follow him, it would be fine. Looking at Lin Yi's back, Xiao Kun frowned. He couldn't figure out how this ordinary-looking young man in front of him could find him. However, it was obviously a bit inappropriate to follow him now. Xiao Kun could only call his second uncle. "Second uncle? They found me." "Oh." The middle-aged man was slightly taken aback. "They found you? They have a master bodyguard?" "I'm not sure. I don't know how they found me, but I was stopped by that young man. He asked me if I was following him." Xiao Kun was also very depressed. It was really like the saying, "Always walk by the river, and you will get your shoes wet." He actually failed miserably. He thought that it was a very simple tracking mission, but it was seen through by someone else. "Forget it, you can come back. Since you know that Lai Chang'e is with Guan Shuamin, it's fine." The middle-aged man thought for a moment and said, "You pay attention to their company for a while. Tomorrow, I will find a chance to test Lai Chang'e and see what his purpose in buying that map is." "Okay, second uncle." Xiao Kun nodded and disappeared into the night. He didn't tell his second uncle about the pharmacy. Lin Yi came to the boutique. Guan Shuamin and Fatty Lai weren't actually there to buy anything. They were just casually looking around. When they saw Lin Yi, they went up to him. "Is it done?" Fatty Lai asked. "Yeah, it was nothing. I just met an acquaintance." Lin Yi smiled and didn't tell them about the person following him. He didn't want Fatty Lai and Guan Shuamin to worry. Instinctively, Lin Yi didn't think that Kun was coming for him. Maybe he saw the future of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company at the auction and followed him to see if there were any discoveries. Especially since he just came out from the hospital. It was obvious that he was going to find out what Lin Yi bought just now. So, Lin Yi thought that Kun was trying to pry into business secrets and didn't think about the map fragment. Fortunately, Lin Yi was careful and didn't buy all the herbs at once. It saved him a lot of trouble. In fact, even if Lin Yi bought all the herbs, it wouldn't be of much use without basic injury medicine. Only when it was added to injury medicine would it have the effect of healing old scars. On the way, they passed by another pharmacy. Lin Yi went to buy the rest of the herbs. Fatty Lai didn't seem to have any intention of writing them down, which made Lin Yi feel relieved. Chapter 501. Some left, isn't this bro, Qingtian? What's wrong? Why do you look so sad? The speaker was Xiaoji's son, Xiao Wangba. He knew that his family was at the end of its tether. so he wanted to get closer to the other noble houses as soon as possible. He walked up to Ching Tian when he saw him walking out with an unhappy face. Wang Ba and Chun Tian were friends in the past, friends who drank and played with women together. Chun Tian didn't reject Wang Ba as he looked at him. "Don't talk about it. I met a little bastard who tried to steal my woman. Grandpa didn't even help me and dragged me out. I don't know why I can't offend that kid. He's just with Miracle Dr. Guan." Wang Ba smiled. "Don't mention it. I met a little bastard who tried to steal my woman. Grandpa didn't even help me and dragged me out. I don't know what's so bad about that kid. He's just with Miracle Dr. Guan." "That's right. Miracle Dr. Guan is nothing. Dr. Kong is the best." Wang Ba's brother, Xiao Ben's son, Xiao Wangye, said. The Xiao family and House Kong were about to become in-laws, so it was only natural that they would side with Dr. Kong. That's right. Cheng Tian felt that the Xiao family brothers were his cup of tea. "What are you two doing? Come with me. If you have nothing to do, I'll treat you to a drink." Cheng Tian was pissed, and he wanted to talk to someone about it. The Xiao brothers looked at each other and were overjoyed. They wanted to get close to Cheng Tian, and now that he invited them to dinner, they were overjoyed. How could they not be happy? Sure, but let's treat bro Cheng Tian. You're the big brother, and we're the little ones. How can we let the big brother spend money? Wang Ba said, "Since you put it like that, then all the more I can't let you guys treat me. Since I'm the big brother, it's only right that I treat you guys." Cheng Tian heard the Xiao family brothers' compliments, and his displeasure lessened a bit. "All right, but we'll have to wait. Dr. Kang's Xiaolong bro and his fiancée, my cousin, will be here soon. Let's go together." Wang Ba nodded. "Oh, Xiaolong?" Cheng Tian paused. "I know him. We've met before. Let's go together." After waiting for a while, a Nissan VIP slowly drove over. This was the Xiao family's car. Although the Xiao family had fallen, they did not sell the car. This car was expensive to buy, but they would definitely lose a lot if they sold it, so it was better to keep it as a facade. House Xiao and Miracle Dr. Kong wanted Xiaolong and Xinyan to attend the auction as well, but Xinyan wouldn't go no matter what they said. Xiaolong had no choice but to stay at home with Xinyan. For the entire afternoon, Xinyan sat on the sofa, listening to her MP3 player and reading novels on her phone. No matter what Xiaolong said, Xinyan would only reply with "oh" or "oh." Xiaolong couldn't get mad at her at all. The auction ended at night, and Wang Ba and Wang Dao invited Xiaolong out for dinner. Xinyan had no choice but to go with Xiaolong under her parents' urging. Her father had promised her that they'd have a meal together, and there was no rush to make a decision. They could go back to Songshan after the meal, and so Xinyan reluctantly came to the auction with Xiaolong. "Bro, Cheng Tian, do you have a car?" Wang Ba asked Cheng Tian when he saw his family's car. Cheng Tian came with Gong Gao, but Gong Gao had evidently gone to meet some friends. Cheng Tian, on the other hand, was pissed that his grandpa didn't stand up for him, and so he didn't leave with his grandpa. "So, where is the car? Let's go. We'll take your family's car." Cheng Tian didn't think that not having a car was a loss of face. After all, people wouldn't believe him if he said he didn't have a car. "Okay, that's great. Bro, Cheng Tian, please get in." Wang Ba invited Cheng Tian into the car before getting in with Wang Dao. "Come, bro. This is bro Cheng Tian from House Iron Fist." Wang Dao introduced Cheng Tian to Xiaolong. "Oh, bro Cheng Tian, nice to meet you. We've met before." Xiaolong smiled and extended his hand. "This is my fiancé, Wang Xinyan. Xinyan, this is bro Cheng Tian, the leader of the younger generation of House Iron Fist, our idol." "Ha, you're too kind." Cheng Tian was very pleased with Xiaolong's words. "Xiaolong, you're the nicest. We'll have to drink a few more cups later." "No problem." Xiaolong agreed happily. He was good at his studies, but he wasn't a bookworm. On the contrary, he was very cunning. He knew how to please Qingtian. Wang Xinyan, on the other hand, sat there quietly, not saying a word. She listened to her MP3 player as if the people around her had nothing to do with her. Xiaolong didn't know what to do when Xinyan didn't say anything, but Qingtian didn't mind at all. He sat there and started chatting with Wangba. Lin Yi sent the 20 bottles of special edition injury medicine to Fatty Lai's room. Fatty Lai didn't think that Lin Yi would be done so quickly. He was surprised, but he admired himself for his wise decision to follow Lin Yi. Boss, how do we set the price for this special edition golden creation? Do as you see fit. Lin Yi wouldn't interfere with the price of this kind of auction item. Everyone who participated in the auction was a wealthy businessman. It wasn't a big deal for them to spend some money. All right. With Lin Yi's full authority, Fatty Lai could do it on his own. He hesitated and said, Boss, can I participate in the auction for this special edition injury medicine? You need this? Lin Yi looked at Fatty Lai strangely. Men didn't seem to need this kind of thing, did they? Just like Lin Yi, there were a few battle scars on his body, but Lin Yi didn't think about removing them. There was no need. Heh, it's my wife. She had an appendectomy a few years ago, and it left a scar. Fatty Lai said, a little embarrassed. You know, every time we make out, I feel uncomfortable when I see that scar. My wife likes to look pretty, and she can't wear clothes that expose her navel in the summer. All right, I got it. Lin Yi waved his hand when he saw that Fatty Lai wasn't done. I still have some left in my room. I was going to throw them away, but if you need them, you can take them back. Huh? Throw them away? Fatty Lai almost fainted. Boss, that's money we're talking about. It's a waste to throw them away. It's like throwing away money. I made a little more, but I don't have any bottles left. It's a little troublesome on my bed. I still need to sleep at night. Lin Yi shrugged nonchalantly. Lin Yi didn't really care about this kind of low-cost stuff. Chapter 502. My dad wants to see you. Lin Yi shoved the rest of the injury medicine into Fatty Lai's hands, only to see that the guy was about to cry again. He pushed the meatball out of the room and slammed the door shut. After stretching, Lin Yi called Tang Yun, but the phone was still turned off. Lin Yi shook his head helplessly, not sure if Tang Yun saw his text. He went to wash his face when his phone rang. Lin Yi thought it was Tang Yun, but it was Xiao Xiao. Lin Yi frowned. He didn't want to pick it up, but Xiao Xiao's perseverance was amazing. She called again and again, and Lin Yi picked it up impatiently. What's up? Why are you being so mean to me? Xiao Xiao felt wronged when she heard Lin Yi's impatient voice. What was the meaning of this? He was so nice to other people, but this was how he treated her. Are you okay? Lin Yi ignored her. If not, I'm hanging up. Yes. Don't hang up. I have something. I really have something. Xiao Xiao jumped in fright. She quickly calmed Lin Yi down, trying to think of a reason to call Lin Yi. Just say it. Lin Yi resisted the urge to hang up. Where are you? Xiao Xiao asked. Hotel. Lin Yi said. Is there anything else? Yes, and Xiao Xiao was sweating. Which hotel are you staying at? What does this have to do with you? Lin Yi asked. Do you have something to do or not? Yes. My dad wants to see you. You saw him at the auction, right? Xiao Xiao couldn't think of a reason, so she came up with a random one. Your dad? Looking for me? Lin Yi was stunned, but he didn't doubt Xiao Xiao's words. After all, he knew Tianlong, and they'd even gone on a mission together, so it was possible that Tianlong was looking for him. But if Tianlong was looking for him, why would he need Xiao Xiao to call him? Didn't he know how to fight? Also, he had already signaled Feng Tianlong with his eyes. As a professional agent, couldn't he see that he didn't want to expose his identity? Why would he come looking for him? It was one thing to look for him in private, but he even sent Xiao Xiao to look for him. Tianlong wouldn't do something like this without considering the consequences. Would he? Yeah. Xiao Xiao had just come up with a random excuse, and it was hard to keep up the lie now. Yes, why is Dad looking for Linny? Xiao Xiao's brain worked furiously, and finally, she got it. I told my dad that you're my boyfriend, so he wants to see you. Xiao Xiao said shyly. Wah? Lin, almost threw the phone away. You can eat whatever you want, but how can you say whatever you want? Tell Tianlong that he's Xiao Xiao's boyfriend? Lin understood. No wonder Tianlong wanted to see him. Any father would want to see their daughter's boyfriend. Especially him. He knew Tianlong from before, and Tianlong was probably wondering how he got together with his daughter. Lin, which hotel are you at? I'll go look for you. Xiao Xiao said softly to Lin, Ugh. Never mind, where are you? I'll go look for you. Lin was speechless. He really had to explain this to Tianlong, or he'd be screwed. Hee, I'm at Songjiang International Hotel. I'll wait for you at the entrance. Xiao Xiao didn't expect Lin to agree immediately. It seemed that using her dad as an excuse wasn't bad. She didn't know that Lin had misunderstood her. There was more to this than met the eye. Okay. Lin smiled bitterly and hung up. He really had to talk to Feng Tianlong about this. After saying goodbye to Fatty Lai and Guan Shuamin, the three of them planned to go to the restaurant for supper, but Lin obviously couldn't eat. At the entrance of the hotel, they stopped a taxi, and Lin told the driver the name of Xiao Xiao's hotel. Songjiang International Hotel wasn't far from the hotel Lin was staying at, but it was on the other side of the auction. The car stopped at the entrance of the hotel, and Lin paid the fare. He saw Xiao Xiao standing at the entrance waving at him. Lin frowned. Xiao Xiao was still so enthusiastic at this time. Was she waiting for Tianlong to misunderstand? Lin here. Xiao Xiao saw Lin and called out excitedly, waving her hand back and forth. Where's your dad? Lin walked in front of Xiao Xiao, ignoring her enthusiasm. Oh, my dad. Xiao Xiao had already thought of a plan. My dad received a call at the last minute, and he's going to a meeting. He asked me to take care of you first. He'll be back soon. If it was someone else, they wouldn't believe Xiao Xiao's words. How could there be such a coincidence? She called Lin over, and the next thing she knew, she had something to do and had to leave. But Lin really believed her. As far as he was concerned, Tianlong was freer than him, but not much freer. He didn't know when the mission would come. It could be in the morning, it could be in the middle of the night. So Lin nodded without hesitation. Where to wait? I haven't eaten yet. My dad asked me to treat you to something first. Xiao Xiao was a little surprised. She didn't expect Lin to be so gullible. Logically speaking, Lin wasn't that gullible. In school, Lin wouldn't believe anything she said. What was wrong with him today? Although Xiao Xiao was confused, she wasn't stupid enough to ask. She could only bury it in her heart and wait and see. Oh, then let's eat something. Lin had his dinner early. He was going to have supper with Fatty Lai and Shuamin, but Xiao Xiao called him over. Okay, then let's walk around and see if there's anything good around here. Xiao Xiao didn't expect Lin to agree so easily. She was even more confused. Can't we eat here? Lin pointed at the Songjiang International Hotel behind Xiao Xiao. How could they not eat at an international hotel? Xiao Xiao hesitated. It's really expensive here. I don't have enough money. Xiao Xiao was staying in an economy room, and it was paid for by Tianlong. The food here wasn't cheap. Xiao Xiao only brought a few thousand this time, and she didn't want to spend it all at once. Chapter 503. Chapter 503. Wu Chintian's plans Lin Yi's impression of Xiao Xiao didn't change, but he felt that Xiao Xiao had been acting strangely lately, confessing to him out of nowhere. He didn't know what she was planning. Now that she told Tianlong about it, Lin Yi couldn't help but wonder what she was thinking. Sure, Xiao Xiao didn't expect Lin Yi to treat her, so she nodded happily. As the two were talking, a Nissan MPV stopped in the parking lot of Songjiang International Hotel. Chen Tian, Zhao Long, the Xiao family brothers, and Xin Yan got out of the car. Wang Ba praised, "Bro, Chen Tian, you're amazing. I've only been here once or twice, and those were during family gatherings. Ha, isn't this a piece of cake?" Chen Tian waved his hand, cocky. In fact, although the Wu family was an ancient family, they advocated martial arts. They were good at practicing martial arts. However, when it came to doing business, they were mediocre. Although they had a few businesses, they were not very big. They only had tens of millions of income a year. This was also the reason why the Wu family only watched from the sidelines at the auction and rarely made a move. In fact, Songjiang International Hotel wasn't all expensive. Just like the guest rooms, they were divided into several grades. There were economy rooms, business rooms, luxury rooms, presidential suites, etc. The ordinary economy rooms were only a few hundred yuan a day, but the presidential suites were tens of thousands a day. It was the same for the F&B. The first and second floors were for normal hotels, so the prices weren't that expensive. A table only cost around 1,000 to 800, and if you didn't want a private room and chose to eat in the main hall, you could get it for a few dozen. The third and fourth floor, however, cost less than 8 or 10,000. The top floor was even more ridiculous. A table of food cost millions, and everything was cooked with top-quality ingredients and international chefs. Of course, there was a dedicated elevator for each level, so there was no need to worry about unpleasant situations because of the different levels of customers. This was a testament to the hotel's wealth. That's right, bro Qingtian. You're definitely on a higher level than us. Xiao Wangdao gave him a thumbs up as well. Xin Yan frowned. She didn't like this kind of flattery. She didn't understand why her father would fall for someone like this. Even if he interacted with such a person for 10 years, he would not fall in love with him. Wang Ba wanted to congratulate Qingtian, but when he raised his head, he noticed that Qingtian's expression wasn't right. Bro, Qingtian, what's wrong? Fuck, I saw that bastard. Qingtian clenched his fist as he looked at Lin Yi, who wasn't too far away. He had the urge to run over and beat up Lin Yi. Oh, why is it him? Xiaolong paused when he saw Lin Yi. He didn't attend the auction, so he didn't know that Lin Yi was in Yanjing. Bro, Qingtian, do you want us to teach him a lesson? Who is that little girl? She doesn't look bad. Wang Ba saw that Lin Yi was alone with a girl beside him, and he immediately became arrogant. Although the Xiao family was down and out, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. In Yanjing, Wang Ba didn't care about anyone. Xin Yan gasped. She looked at Lin Yi in disbelief, wondering why Lin Yi was here. She even called him earlier. No need. Chen Tian waved his hand. Wang Ba's words reminded him. The girl beside Lin Yi was obviously not Sun Jingyi. And if Lin Yi was Sun Jingyi's boyfriend, then why was he with another girl? It was Lin Yi's turn to be unlucky. Chen Tian thought that if he told Sun Jingyi about this, would Sun Jingyi still be with Lin Yi? Of course, this kind of thing was nothing in the eyes of these young masters. As long as their girlfriends didn't find any evidence, it would be fine. If it was put on the table, it would be a big deal. No need. Wang Ba didn't understand what Qingtian meant. This was such a good chance to teach Lin Yi a lesson. Why not use it? I'm going to treat them to dinner later. Just cooperate with me. Don't talk nonsense. Just listen to what I have to say. Qingtian wasn't stupid. If he directly told Sun Jingyi that Lin Yi had a girl outside, Sun Jingyi wouldn't believe him and would think that he was lying. Evidence was needed for everything. Although he could take a photo for Sun Jingyi, a photo of them talking in front of a hotel didn't prove anything. They could talk for half a day if they met someone they knew, and Chintian wasn't stupid enough to use this as evidence. What he wanted to do was to treat Lin Yi to dinner. At that time, he might be able to see the intimate actions between Lin Yi and Xiao Xiao. Of course, if Lin Yi was more cautious, he could force him to drink more. It was inevitable that he would give himself away after drinking, and if he took a photo, Sun Jingyi wouldn't believe it. Thinking of this, Chintian felt that he was too much of a genius. He could kill without a trace, and unknowingly set up a trap for his opponent to fall into. Ah, bro, Chintian wants to treat him to dinner? Wang Ba couldn't believe his ears. Yes, later, help me out. If he does anything intimate with that girl, use your phone to take a photo, Chintian ordered. Okay. Wang Ba and the others nodded. Only Xinyan frowned. She didn't understand what Chintian was planning. Lin Yi, after giving the order, Chintian quickly walked towards Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't expect to see someone he knew here. He turned around and saw Chintian. He wondered if this guy was unhappy and came here to cause trouble. What do you want? Lin Yi looked at him, but his eyes fell on Xinyan, who was not far behind Chintian. This made Lin Yi even more surprised. Why was Xinyan with Chintian and the others? Besides, other than Xinyan, Lin Yi saw another familiar face, Kang Xiaolong. Bro, Lin Yi, I'm really sorry for offending you just now. Chintian gritted his teeth and pretended to be apologetic to Lin Yi. My grandpa already scolded me. I hope you don't mind. Oh, I don't have time to mind small fries. I don't even remember your name. Lin Yi looked at him and waved his hand. You're Iron Fist Wu, right? Chapter 504. Chapter 504. Overbearing, all right. Is everything all right? Lin Yi looked at Chintian before turning to leave. Wait. There was no way Chintian would let Lin Yi leave just like that. How was he supposed to carry out his plan? He quickly called out to Lin Yi. I think you guys are going for supper, right? I'll treat you guys to dinner to express my apology. It's fine, we'll go ourselves. Lin Yi rejected Chintian's suggestion flatly. Don't worry, I won't feel good if you don't go. I know I'm in the wrong, and it's best if I can change. Chintian said, Give me some face. Lin Yi looked at Xinyan, who wasn't too far away. She was looking at him expectantly. Could it be that Xinyan wanted him to eat with them? What was her relationship with Chintian? Lin Yi hesitated at the thought. If it was just Chintian treating him to dinner, Lin Yi wouldn't be interested at all, but with Xinyan, things were different. But before Lin Yi could say anything, Xiao Xiao spoke up. You're treating us? Yeah, Lil Sis Xiao Xiao. I'm really sorry for what I did to you earlier. Chintian knew about Xiao Xiao's background now, and naturally didn't want to get on her bad side. He wasn't as angry as before. I see. I'll give you a chance to apologize then. What do you say, Lin Yi? Xiao Xiao winked at Lin Yi. Lin Yi blinked, not knowing what Xiao Xiao was planning. But when this girl made that expression, it meant that someone was going to be in trouble. Xiao Xiao had the same expression when she targeted him before, but this time, the person in trouble was Chintian. He nodded. All right, I'll listen to you. Chintian was overjoyed to see Lin Yi agree. Then let's go. It's my treat today. Order whatever you want to eat, and let's resolve this misunderstanding. Oh, we're going to the top floor of Songjiang International Hotel for supper. Let's go there then. Xiao Xiao nodded naturally. Quack. Chintian paused. He had only been to the third and fourth floor of Songjiang International Hotel, and that was already very luxurious. One table cost him tens of thousands of kuai. If this was the top floor, how much would it cost? Although he had never been there, he could imagine it. And so, Chintian hesitated. He was planning to bring the Xiao family brothers and Xiaolong to the first floor, and with Lin Yi, they could only go to the room on the second floor. The food and wine on the table would be around 10,000 yuan. But he didn't expect Xiao Xiao to ask for the top floor. What happened to you? Xiao Xiao looked at Qin Tian's face strangely. What's wrong with your face? Don't you practice Iron Fist? Did you practice Iron Skin Face too? Of course not. Ha! Qin Tian forced a smile. Then, let's go to the top floor. That's great. I've never been to the top floor before. I'll have to eat to my heart's content later. Xiao Xiao cheered. Xiao Xiao had only heard people say that the restaurant on the top floor was as luxurious as a palace, and the chefs were all world-class chefs, but she had never seen it before. Even if Tianlong's annual salary was high, there was no way he could take out half of it to take Xiao Xiao out to eat. Xiao Xiao thought that she wouldn't be able to see it before she died, but this idiot Qin Tian came right to her doorstep. Qin Tian wanted to curse. What the hell are you doing if you've never been there? But he'd already said it, and if he took it back, he wouldn't be able to achieve his goal, and he'd lose face. There were still the Xiao family brothers and Kong Xiaolong behind him, and he was the most famous person in the third generation of House Wu. How could he let them look down on him? Bro Qin Tian, I heard that the top floor is just like a palace, and the rice bowls are all inlaid with diamonds. Wang Ba was looking forward to the luxurious restaurant on the top floor, but it wasn't something normal people could afford. What if Qin Tian didn't have the money to pay the bill? Thus, he quickly whispered, "Isn't it a little too expensive?" Wang Ba's voice wasn't loud, but Lin Yi and Xiao Xiao heard him. Xiao Xiao immediately said, "That expensive? I didn't know before. Why don't we go ourselves, bro?" Qin Tian. Xiao Xiao's words not only didn't have the desired effect, but it also angered Qin Tian. He was the son of a noble house. How could he let others look down on him? If he couldn't even afford a meal, wouldn't he be a laughingstock? He waved his hand generously. "This is nothing. It's not that much money. I said it's my treat. Order whatever you like later." I have to say, bro Qin Tian, you're so generous. Even my boyfriend isn't as generous as you. Xiao Xiao waved her fist happily, and Qin Tian's heart skipped a beat. But he knew that he was pursuing Sun Jingyi, and if he didn't, he wouldn't have a good ending. Xiao Xiao was beautiful, but she wasn't someone he could mess with, especially when her father was Feng Tianlong. Qin Tian wouldn't take the initiative to mess with her. When he heard Xiao Xiao call Linny her boyfriend, he was even happier. He had his suspicions about Xiao Xiao and Lin Yi's relationship, but now that it was confirmed, things were much easier. Spending so much money on treating them was worth it. With that thought, Qin Tian felt better. He said to Lin Yi, "Let me introduce you to a few friends. These two are Xiao Wangba and Xiao Wangdao from the Xiao family." Huh? Xiao Xiao's eyes widened. Wow, aren't these two big bros names too domineering? Especially Xiao Wangba. He's so domineering. That's right. Xiao Wangba nodded. He thought that Xiao Xiao was complimenting him. So naturally, he didn't hear the sarcasm in her tone. Xiao Xiao called him a little bastard. Our names are domineering when combined. Xiao Wangdao nodded as well, not hearing the sarcasm in Xiao Xiao's tone at all. But it wasn't surprising. The Xiao family was like the sun in the sky, and the old man was still alive. Even if people thought that Wangba and Xiao family were homophonic, they wouldn't say it out loud. Now that the Xiao family was gone, naturally, no one had the time to say it out loud. Only Xinyan heard the sarcasm in Xiao Xiao's tone and couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. Xiaolong fell head over heels for her. "Xinyan, another girl just came. I was worried that you'd feel awkward, but now there's someone to accompany you." Chapter 5:05. This meal wasn't for nothing. Welcome. The group went through the VIP passage and arrived at the elevator on the top floor. Every floor had its own passage to show how prestigious they were. The moment they entered, two waiters, one male and one female, bowed to them respectfully. The man and woman looked like a perfect couple, no weaker than those movie stars. Chen Tian's heart skipped a beat. If the door was this luxurious, wouldn't the inside be even more luxurious? He didn't know if he brought enough money, but it should be enough. Chen Tian had more than 100,000 in his bank card. He was the leader of the younger generation in House Wu, but House Wu wasn't that wealthy. Naturally, they had to control his pocket money. Bro Chen Tian, look at the luxurious hallway. Are we really going in? Wang Ba's heart was beating like a drum. Chen Tian wouldn't make him pay if he didn't have the money to pay. What's with all the nonsense? We're here. We're here. Chen Tian frowned. He was nervous, but he didn't back down. I said it's my treat. Why are you so nosy? Are you looking down on me? Chen Tian? That's not it. Xiao Wangba felt a little awkward. Bro Chen Tian, bro, Wangba isn't looking down on you. He's doing it for your own good. He's worried that you won't have enough money. Xiao Xiao interrupted. He's just being nice. Chen Tian was irritated. How could this Xiao Xiao say that? What did she mean by worried? That he wouldn't have enough money? He turned around and saw Xiao Xiao looking at him innocently. There wasn't a hint of disdain or mockery on her face. He was confused. Could it be that Xiao Xiao wasn't mocking him, but explaining Wangba's intentions? I know he's being nice, but I'm the first in line to inherit House Wu. How could I not have enough money? What a joke. Chen Tian explained gloomily. He didn't have any temper at all. Lin Yi looked at Xiao Xiao oddly, amused. He didn't expect her to be so good at playing dumb. Yeah, how could bro Chen Tian be poor? I'm the one who hasn't seen the world. I'm using my own worldview to judge bro Chen Tian. Wangba knew that his good intentions had ruined things. He quickly explained, I'm really a frog in a well. That's not true. Chen Tian was pleased with Wangba's words. He waved his hand and said generously, It's normal that you've never been to the top floor. I've actually only been here once with Grandpa. It's expensive, but it's for a good reason. It's expensive for a good reason. Chen Tian, bro, Chen Tian, man, I do have a boyfriend, or else I'd fall in love with you. Xiao Xiao said worshipfully after hearing Chen Tian's words. Puffed. Lin, he almost burst out laughing, but luckily he had a lot of self-control. It was just a weird expression on his face for a moment before returning to normal. Xiao Xiao's Chen Chase CHT for him. CH Tian Xiao Xiao CHT full. He couldn't touch this Xiao Xiao, but he was happy to be praised by her. It was a wonderful thing to be acknowledged by a beauty. Your boyfriend isn't too bad either, Chen Tian said with a smile. But excellent men always go out and do things. You have to be careful and keep a close eye on him. Chen Tian was joking, but he was reminding Xiao Xiao to keep an eye on Lin Yi. Chen Tian felt that he was a genius. Even a question like that could lead to something that would benefit him. Once Xiao Xiao kept an eye on Lin Yi, he'd see how he'd get in touch with Sun Jingyi. Yeah, I'll have to be careful then. Xiao Xiao nodded seriously. Chen Tian was happy that Xiao Xiao was so obedient. Today's meal was worth it. Not only could he show Sun Jingyi the evidence that Lin Yi was with another girl, but he could also warn Xiao Xiao to keep an eye on Lin Yi. Xiao Xiao's father wasn't just anyone. He'd leak this information to Tianlong, and Lin Yi wouldn't be able to get rid of him even if he wanted to. Let's see if he'd have time to mess with Sun Jingyi then. Under the lead of a girl who was even prettier than a movie star, the group came to a private room. Chen Tian naturally sat at the head of the table. Lin Yi sat next to Xiao Xiao, and Xiao Xiao sat next to Xinyan. It was just as Wangba said. The tableware on the table was made of pure gold, and the decorative vase in the middle was embedded with diamonds. If it wasn't made of zircon and was made of real diamonds, then this vase would be worth at least 1 million. Chen Tian was someone who had seen the world. His face only changed a little before returning to normal. These were all tableware and decorations. They were expensive to make, but they weren't consumables. "Excuse me, can we start ordering?" A waiter walked in and asked respectfully after seeing Chintian at the head of the table. "Yes, you guys can order." Chintian waved his hand. Since he was treating, he had to act like he was treating. "Ladies first." Wangba wanted to order a few dishes, but after some hesitation, he passed the menu to Xiao Xiao and Xinyan. The dishes on the top floor must be ridiculously expensive. If Chintian didn't have money to pay after he ordered, he'd be screwed. This kind of thing wasn't unheard of. I'll order. Xiao Xiao took the menu and started flipping through it, her face turning bitter after a few pages. "I'll pass. Why's the food here so expensive? Just a normal dish costs a few hundred." Lin Yi didn't know what to say, but he didn't know what to make of it. Chen Tian's heart skipped a beat when he heard Xiao Xiao say the dishes were expensive, but when she said it cost a few hundred, he found it funny. A few hundred was too expensive. A few hundred wasn't expensive at all. He thought about the people here. Ordering 10 dishes would only cost him 8 to 10,000. It wasn't much at all. Therefore, he waved his hand generously. "It's okay. You can order whatever you want to eat. The dishes here are a little more expensive than other places, but it's still fair." The last time I came here with my grandpa, even he said that the service was so high class and the dishes were so cheap. Chapter 506. Xiao Xiao ordering what a... Chintian waved his hand. "You're mocking me, aren't you? What's this small amount of money? Grandpa and I ordered a few signature dishes here, and it didn't even cost much." "I see." Xiao Xiao said worshipfully. "I'll order then." "Yeah, go ahead." Chintian thought to himself. It seemed that all girls liked pretentious guys. His strategy for pursuing Sun Jingyi was a bit problematic. He'd always been careful about his demeanor, pretending to be a gentleman in front of Sun Jingyi. But after seeing Xiao Xiao's reaction today, Chun Tian felt that it was better to be pretentious. Even Xiao Xiao, who already had a boyfriend, was looking at him in a different light now. Chun Tian felt as if he'd been enlightened, feeling that today's meal wasn't a waste at all. Not only did he achieve his goal, but he'd also learned how to hit on girls. "Oh, give me one of each of these signature dishes." Xiao Xiao pointed at the signature dishes on the first page of the menu. "Okay, but are you sure you want one of each?" The waiter carefully repeated to confirm. The signature dishes on the first page weren't cheap at all. They all cost at least 500,000, and the ingredients were flown in the same day. Bro Chintian, which signature dish is the best here? Haven't you tried them all? Why don't we just pick a few?" Xiao Xiao raised her head to look at Chintian. "I think it's a bit wasteful if we order too much. The signature dishes here are all good. I've tried them all before, and I can't tell which one is better." Chintian had never eaten signature dishes before. He couldn't say it now. And in order to not lose face, he could only pretend that he'd eaten them all before and let Xiao Xiao order them all. He couldn't say that he didn't know which one was better, could he? The waiter saw that Chintian had already confirmed it, and naturally he didn't ask any more. It was obvious that Chintian was the one treating today, and Chintian was an arrogant person with the aura of a rich young master. The waiter wasn't worried that he wouldn't be able to pay the bill. "All right, please continue." The waiter noted down the signature dish and politely gestured to Xiao Xiao. Actually, I'm not very good at ordering. Why don't you recommend some delicious dishes to me? I like seafood." Xiao Xiao said. Chun Tian let out a breath of relief after hearing Xiao Xiao's words. Seafood was expensive, but it wasn't that expensive. For ordinary people, these were top-notch delicacies. But for the children of aristocratic families, these things were nothing special. What is the most expensive thing? Naturally, it was those rare and precious things in this world. He was really afraid that Xiao Xiao would eat some rare animal or something That would be really expensive. If you're talking about seafood, we have Hokkaido abalone, Australian lobster, and Devon crab. These are all our signature dishes. May I ask which grade would you like, madam? Hokkaido abalone is divided into. The waiter was about to introduce when Xiao Xiao interrupted him. Bro, Chintian, why don't we get something cheaper? Something like the street food stalls. Xiao Xiao said, a little embarrassed, we've already ordered so many signature dishes. Why don't we order some cheaper seafood? What do you want cheap? I want the best. Chintian waved his hand. How expensive could seafood be? It wasn't like he hadn't eaten seafood in five-star hotels before, and a meal would only cost 10 to 20,000 at most. All right, the best Hokkaido abalone is. The waiter nodded and was about to introduce. I said, I want the best. What do you mean? Do you think I've never eaten it before? Chantian was a little annoyed. This waiter was still introducing things here and there. Was he looking down on him? He felt like he had lost face and scolded the waiter impatiently. I'm sorry, sir. The waiter quickly apologized. He wanted to repeat the grade of the seafood in the restaurant. For example, the Hokkaido one-head abalone was the highest grade abalone. He wanted to brag about the strength of his restaurant, but the owner of this table clearly didn't like it. Then give me one of each seafood. I'll try it myself, and I've never eaten anything so delicious. I didn't waste my life. Even if I die, it's worth it. Xiao Xiao looked at Chintian gratefully. What do you mean one? One for everyone. Let's eat the good stuff. Chintian said to the waiter, other than signature dishes and seafood, give us a few side dishes. Don't make them too low-end. They have to match these. Chintian said that, but in his heart he was thinking, how expensive could normal side dishes be? Even if it was a little more high-end, a few vegetarian dishes would cost a few hundred to 1,000. Okay, the waiter didn't dare to say more and nodded to show that he remembered. She could tell that this table of customers was very generous. They were probably very rich and didn't like her to talk. Is there anything else? Do you want to order now? Bro, Chintian, do we want wine? Wangba reminded Chintian. Give us some red wine, Chintian said to the waiter. 82 Lafite. Okay. The waiter was a little confused. The 82 Lafite was considered a good wine, but it was nothing compared to the dishes they ordered earlier. The dishes they ordered earlier didn't seem to match the 82 Lafite, but the waiter could see that Chintian's temper wasn't very good, so he didn't dare to ask. Who knew? Maybe he liked 82 Lafite. After the waiter left, Chintian said, It's fate that brought us together today. Let me introduce everyone. This is Lin E. I have a little conflict with Lin E. Bro, but the fact that Lin E. Bro came to this dinner shows his attitude. And this is his girlfriend, Xiao Xiao, Kang Xiaolong. Xiaolong stood up and extended his hand to Lin E. Lil Bro Lin E. We've met before. Huh? Lin E smiled faintly, but didn't extend his hand. Do you think we need to shake hands? You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.